Hey, crypto heads! It's the Goose with the Cryptic Paranormal Show. We're back. It's been a couple weeks. Been a couple crazy
Sorry,
weeks.
my bad.
No, you're everything's healing up okay. You're
Yeah,
feeling better.
yeah.
Good, good.
I have
That's
my
that's
checkup appointment tomorrow. Getting my
awesome.
okay to drive at 9:30 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and then by 11, Goose and I will be heading to Ann Arbor for the Autographs for Pooches event.
I
So
cannot wait. I'm so excited. I haven't been able to sleep like the last 2 nights.
I know I'm so excited.
Thinking about like getting ready to pack and all that kind of stuff. I'm almost ready to go. But yeah, it's been busy, crazy with the kids. I know you've been having stuff going on. As you can see, Heisenberg's not on tonight. He's dealing with some back issues, but we need him better to be with us at Potographs because we're definitely going to need all three of us there.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's about it. But as you can see down there, we got a very special guest, Alex MATSUO. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Hanging in there. Super happy to have you on. It's been a while. I know I contacted you a few times. It's like our schedules were never able to mingle enough to get this done, but here it is finally get you on. So I'm excited to have you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. I mean, it's been a long time coming, so I'm glad it's finally happening.
Yeah.
You're so lucky. No, I'm just kidding.
That's what you should say. You should be so lucky.
So what's been going on? Well, we always start off every episode with our special guests and get their origin story, like your superhero origin stories. How did you get into this madness that we all love?
Oh gosh. Well, like most people, I had experiences when I was a kid. I mean, I know that's so original and so unique. Uh, And I guess you could say, like, I kind of peeked into the veil a couple times growing up, but I lived in a household where that was heavily discouraged, mainly by my mother. She was extremely conservative Christian, and the whole mindset of like, these aren't demons or these aren't ghosts you're talking to, it's demons, and you
Mhm.
don't bring this into my house type of deal. I also lived with my grandmother, and she didn't care. She was like, whatever floats your boat, if it's
Yeah,
spooky, if it's Jesus, whatever you want, spooky Jesus, whatever you want to do. My mother was
nice.
a bit more rigid, and ultimately, I was her daughter, so I abided by her rules. But the big thing that happened was I dealt with a spirit attachment after a really bad car accident. A man I was
Oh,
sharing the trauma room with, he ended up passing away that night. Attached himself to me, and then he hung around for
wow.
about 8 months.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, that is
Oh
a
my
new
gosh.
fear
No.
unlocked.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, is so
No,
but
thank
so
you.
that was, I guess you could say, that could be my villain origin story. Because this was 2006 when this happened. The accident was New Year's Eve 2005, so going into 2006. Um so the paranormal community that we have today did not exist in 2006. Today, if that
No.
thing were to happen, all I would have to do is put a post up on Facebook and I'd have 40 people contacting me wanting to help.
right.
I did not have that in
Yeah.
2006. So that inspired me to, after I was done with college, dive deeper into this, specifically to help people with similar issues so that they didn't have to go through what I went through. Um, and then that just kind of opened up the rabbit hole for all of these like different experiences, research, writing, and all that fun stuff.
Nice. So what did you do to get rid of your friend?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So it's the most anticlimactic thing ever. So we had assistance from the Greek Orthodox Church. So this little old Greek lady came over. She couldn't have been more than like 5 foot even, maybe even shorter. I mean, she was little and very old. Um, and so she had done like, this whole, ritual stuff, related to the Greek Orthodox Church. And before she left, she gave me an industrial sized spray bottle of holy water,
Wow.
Nice.
basically saying, "Oh, you're gonna need this. Make the sign of the cross before bed every night." Okay, cool. Um, and that more so put a muzzle on this guy. It didn't take care of the issue. So, like I said, it's the most anticlimactic thing ever. I went into the room I had been staying in when I was recovering from my car accident, and essentially I like meditated. Could say it's prayer, but mostly meditated, and just try to connect with this guy and say, I'm not going to apologize for surviving my car accident. I'm sorry that you didn't make it, but this can't keep going. You have to leave. I set boundaries, reasserted my space and my right to exist, and that took care of it. Like, I set down some really hard boundaries, and he ended up leaving. So
That's awesome.
again,
No,
so anticlimactic,
no,
but
no. It's
No,
so
I mean,
important though. I stress this all the time, and people give me a hard time because, like, I'm sorry, but I don't necessarily believe in like sage and things like that. I think that it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you believe that that's working for you, then it's going to work for you, because you're basically doing exactly what you just did. You know, when you do the sage, you're in your mind setting boundaries, and it works, you know. And it doesn't work because it's a magical leaf. It works because your brain is magical and your boundaries are magical. And I wish
Yep.
people understood that more.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like this dramatic thing of like, get out. You know,
Yeah.
it wasn't anything like that. It was just, hey, this isn't working. I'm miserable. You've got to be miserable. We're going to
Yeah.
keep being miserable if this keeps going. This is my house, my space, my right to exist. I'm not apologizing for it.
Yeah.
Get out. You know, it's
What
just
kind
like,
of things was he doing? Like,
so he was doing a lot of different things. So it's actually started like the night I was admitted into the hospital and I was getting settled in my room. I saw him as a shadow for at first, and you know, this I was starting the morphine drip, so this could be a little debatable. When the cops came to my hospital room to basically ask like, hey, what was going on the night of your act, what was happening tonight, were you drunk? They were really trying to get me to admit that I was drunk, and I wasn't. And I hadn't even been drinking that night. I was 19 years old.
nice.
um that's when I first saw this guy. I saw him as a shadow just kind of circling around the police officers, and then he was making things move. um like my mom would try to brush my hair, and she try to grab the hairbrush, and it like flew off the tray in my hospital room.
Oh my
oh wow.
gosh.
Blew over my get well cards and my flowers that I got from friends and family. um Let's see. And then I did end up seeing him, and I saw him during my surgery to repair my hip because I had vertically sheared my pelvis, which you're not supposed to be able to do under anesthesia because anesthesia is like
Yeah,
lights out.
right.
I had a very vivid, I don't know if it was a dream or what, but that's when I actually really got a good look at him. But yeah, I mean, anesthesia is just, you know, it's like a long blink for me, and I never had
Yeah.
that experience again. Um, and I would see him around my house. He made like the pictures and mirrors on my in my mom's house fall off the wall.
Oh
So,
geez.
and as I was getting better and acclimating more to regular life again, he would he got more aggressive and stronger, meaning like I'm guessing he didn't want me to resume normal life. So,
So
um
crazy that he just
Wow.
picked you, you know?
well,
Right.
we did share a trauma room together, and I had an out of what I believe to be an out of body experience. I don't think it was a near death experience because I didn't have like those. This is Callie, by the way.
Hi,
This is
Kelly.
what she does. I didn't have like those feelings of like peace and love that they say come with, you know, oh, when you're about to pass, you just feel so peaceful. And
Yeah.
I was able to walk around the hospital, and I could see like my mom and all my friends in the lobby, and something in my
Wow.
head did think like, oh, maybe this is my near death experience because here's everybody that I care about in the hospital.
Right.
Yeah.
No, my mom just sent like a text to all my friends after the car accident saying, hey, Alex got in a really bad wreck, not sure if she's going to make it, you know, feel free to come to the hospital. And you know, they all did. So
Wow.
um yeah, so I had actually seen him during that out of body experience as well, and he was in the trauma room next to me, or in the same room but in the bed next to me. And we were both like looking at our bodies being worked
Oh,
on. It was really
Oh
freaky.
weird.
Um, and again, and I always say like this could have been me like processing my trauma in a very dramatic way, which but it was way too vivid and way too real for me.
yeah.
And the night my accident happened, it was raining. It was in a major city in San Diego where we got maybe 2 days of rain a year. And it was New Year's Eve.
Mhm.
So the hospitals were full to the brim.
Yeah.
You already had factors of like San Diegans, we don't know how to drive in the rain, which is true. I've since learned after moving to the South. Um, But yeah, so you had like multiple factors already working against you that evening. So we were sharing trauma rooms, which
Yeah.
isn't the norm, but
Yeah.
that's what the hospital had to deal with, and they actually couldn't even send me to the nearest hospital because it was packed.
Oh
So
my
they sent me
God.
Oh
to the next
wow.
hospital down like 10 minutes away. Yeah, it
Well,
was
you guys
insane.
really don't know how to drive in the rain, huh? That's crazy.
I could imagine you, driving in the snow that California's just been dealing with.
Oh gosh, yeah. A lot of my friends in California, I mean, apparently Disneyland got snow like either yesterday or today. I was like, wow. I don't
Yeah.
know how y'all are dealing.
And it was like 70 in Ohio.
Yeah,
That's where they
right.
got all that snow.
Which is crazy.
Crazy.
That's crazy. Nice.
Connor. Um, yeah, that's
Apparently Callie's joining this conversation.
yeah,
So
that's fine.
So Kelly, what's your origin story? How did you get? No, I always find it interesting when people tell us their like first experience, and like, and I think back to my story, but like most people would just say, most people not like us would just say, okay, I'm done with that. I don't want anything to do
Mhm.
with it anymore. Ghosts aren't real. I'm just gonna block it all out. Nothing. What kept you going with that? Like just your.
Um, that's a good question. So I really wanted to try to understand what had happened to me during the whole car accident situation and the spirit attachment thing. Like, I really wanted to try to understand what was happening. I was also exposed to a lot of trauma growing up, especially with like dealing with death at an early age.
Mhm.
So just having that validation of like, is there life after death? That was a big motivator for me. Um, the whole like, oh, after we die we go to heaven, that wasn't really cutting it for me, especially when I was having these other experiences and I was wondering like, okay, does consciousness survive? I mean, I was using the bigger words later in life. When I was 19, I was like, what the hell was that?
Right.
So just really trying to get a grasp on what exactly is going on, and how it happens. And I alluded to this earlier, but if maybe this spirit attachment wasn't an actual entity of a person, but instead it was me projecting my own trauma, that's still fascinating by itself, because
Right.
I would have been able to make
Right.
things, then I would have been the one making things move.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, well, how does that work? Which sends you down the parapsychology rabbit
Yeah.
hole. So
Mhm.
there's just
Yeah.
so many layers to it, and I'm always finding something fascinating to dive
Yeah.
deeper into.
Right. I think that's one of the things I like the most is that, we'll sit here and have a conversation and just like come up with these great theories, and it'll seem like we figure so many things out, but then at the same time it's like 20 more questions that come up. Like
Oh
there's
yeah,
no end to this, and
definitely.
I love it.
Yep, there's no end at all. It's like this, it's like a flow chart that doesn't end. It's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
The
fun.
journey has definitely taken many forks in the road. Like I started off with a team, and it actually we weren't out to prove anything. I felt like we were originally out to make sure everybody understood nothing existed. Like it was like
Mhm.
we were just trying to debunk everything, like scientifically, and then I'm like, this isn't actually so much fun, and it's kind of the opposite of validating my experience and why I got into this.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And then it's just the cancer of having a team that doesn't get along. And we eventually broke up, and we reformed, and I'm so much happier because like our group, whatever goes flow, like whatever you want to believe. Like
Mhm.
if you want to
Mhm.
try this experiment, let's do this. If you want to go down this rabbit hole, let's go down that rabbit hole. It's
Yeah.
just it's more for fulfilling to do that kind of research and that kind of experimentation and investigation work. It's just I don't know. I don't know. It's just interesting how things evolve. Like completely I started off with like wanting to use all the gadgets and the technology, and now I'm like, okay, let's like try Ouija boards and dowsing rods and stuff like that. So it's kind of weird. It's interesting how it changes
I am a
That's
constantly.
big
awesome.
fan of like how, especially things like pendulums and dowsing rods, and that stuff has been used for hundreds of years, and it has
Mhm.
not changed, and it still is such a great way to communicate. And it makes you wonder like how the hell, okay, because like the first pendulums are like an acorn at the end of a string, right? Like how
Mhm.
the hell did people
Yeah.
figure out that I could use this acorn and string, or I can use these two pieces of metal or these two sticks to communicate with spirits? Like
Right.
What? And we still
Right.
do it today.
Right. Well, it's kind of the same thing with like herbs and spices too. Like, how did we
Right.
figure out what was poisonous
Yeah.
and what wasn't? Was it
Right.
trial and
Right.
error? Like,
Yeah.
Or even like
Well,
food.
John's dead. I guess that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Write that down.
Like you just draw straws to see who tries the food first. Like an egg comes out of a chicken's butt, and who looked at it and was like, "We should try to cook that."
that's a good point. That's a good point.
And then eat the mom for dinner.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Everybody's commenting on how amazing your office looks, Steve.
It does look really good.
Thanks. I actually built this entire setup just for one award because I knew I was going to be getting an award at work.
Oh, that's
And I
awesome.
busted my ass to get it. And I was like, listen,
you
I'm not
did.
bringing that award home and putting it on some crappy
Yeah.
Walmart bookshelf. I said, I got to make a nice spot for it. So I literally did my entire office just so I could bring this award home to a
I mean, I kind of miss the Avengers futon in the background, but I
yeah.
don't know.
I mean,
Wait.
now I redid them.
Sage Gatto said he really enjoyed using the dowsing rods at their hunt at FCI. I personally, Sage, I don't trust myself with those things because I know I'm a fidget, and I just know, like, I don't know. I don't think I have the control. Do you use that kind of stuff, Alex? Do you use like the more spiritualistic things, or?
Yeah, so I'm similar to you. I've started dabbling into more of that later, like in my mean kissy. That's how you can throw me off course. Cute cats. She wants food. That's why she's being sweet. I got her number figured out. But yeah, so I do, but with the dowsing rods, I have to be very careful because I know that I'm very, very self-conscious of me moving. And even if I twitch a little bit, I'm like, nope, gotta reset.
Yeah.
Now I have seen, granted they were created by skeptics, but I have seen people make, those little like little stands for
yeah.
the dowsing rods as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Which I've considered building because people like Kenny Biddle put out their plans on how to build it. I just need the motivation to do it.
Right.
But yeah, Ouija boards, I collect them and I'll use them, and just out of respect for the history of the board, I make sure to open and close the door. And
Right.
Sure. Right.
I mean, I have like about 6 now. So one of my oldest one dates back to the early 1900s. So almost bordering
wow.
late 1800s.
Nice.
So now whenever I use a board, I try to make it so that whoever is asking the questions, like if they're trying to contact a certain person, that person's not using the board, but they're in the room asking the questions. And that way the people who are using the board aren't predisposed with that information and could inadvertently influence the planchette moving. So, and sometimes we've had some really interesting results out of that. Where sometimes like the board would answer in a different language, and I had a friend trying to contact his great grandmother, and she was Chinese and she only spoke Chinese, and the words initially that were coming out didn't make any sense. But then like when we wrote it out and spoke it, it was like, oh snap, you're it was phonetically spelling out Chinese, which was interesting because I'm like, would the great grandmother had known like you had to use the letters but again, spirit world, I don't know the rules. Maybe it's like, oh yeah,
right.
But I thought it was interesting because the words themselves, like, they were words, but they didn't make any sense in English. But it was like saying things like bao bao and which is baby, in Chinese, or depending on where in China, bun too. But yeah, so things like that when we were actually reading it out loud, then my friend was like, holy cow, that's Chinese. And oh yeah, this is what my great grandmother is saying. And it's like, oh, that's weird.
Wow.
See, that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's very validating. A lot of time I have such a hard time trusting Ouija boards, even when it's people that I trust on the planchette, because they're just so easy to move and fake,
Oh yeah, I mean, and I've run into people who have like manipulated them, especially once people know, like it's so funny because anytime I get like mediums or people using boards contacting me, it's always like, oh, your mother has a message. And I'm like, Really, uh, my mother is very, if you just type in my name, you could probably find my mom's name, or you just type in Matsuo San Diego, you can probably find, my entire family's name. Oh, thanks, Sky. That was sweet. Um, yeah, so it's always like my mom, and my mom and I had a very complicated and unique relationship. You know, uh, Borderlining no contact, for a little bit. It was one of those turbulent things. So my mom wouldn't have come through with like love bombing me, from a
Yeah.
medium. And
Yeah.
they're like, well, in spirit, it's all love and blah blah blah. And I'm like, not my mom. My mom would have
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
why are you bugging me?
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know though, because what if like if you have traumas that make you take things out on other people, or you have mental illness that makes you treat people badly, like what if that sort of thing does disappear when you pass away and when you turn into a spirit, and then maybe you don't have those issues anymore? I don't know. I'm not
That's
saying that.
possible.
Yeah, I completely understand, because I have the same sort of relationship with my mother. So I don't know that I would believe people if they were like, "Oh, your mom came through and she said she loves you so much, her baby girl." I don't.
Be like, who are you talking to?
Yeah, you got the wrong girl. That's not me.
Yeah, like so the one medium that I truly do believe made contact with my mother, she had, come, it's like, oh, your mom's coming through to me right now, and but asked permission, saying, hey, this woman who looks just like you is coming through. My mom and I look exactly alike, so I'm like, okay. Um, and literally one of the first things this this person said was, "Your mom wanted me to let you know that you need to keep your coat. You need to keep your coats and jackets in the closet." I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's my mom."
Okay.
Yeah.
Not,
Yeah.
"Hi, how are you?" It's,
Right.
"Hey,
Yeah.
hey, you need to put your coats in the
Yeah, like
closet."
clean
Like,
up your
thanks.
mess. Like, what are you
Like,
doing?
exactly. So I'm like, "Oh yep, yep,
Yeah.
nailed it."
Yeah.
Yeah. In the past, I've had many mediums since my mom passed contact me and give me various readings, and a lot of them were just not my mom for sure. But this one lady, we actually had her on her show. Her name was Linda Dix. She's like, I'm just getting your mom is laughing hysterically. She says you're an idiot, and she's drinking a Pepsi. I'm like, holy shit, you like nailed my mom perfectly. Like
Yeah.
she was a Pepsi holic. I mean, she would just constantly laugh. And people, like my big phrase for everybody's shut up, like hashtag shut up. And that's, I tell everybody shut up. But in my house, that really was a term of endearment. Like my mom would tell me to shut up all the time.
Hmm.
Because like my brother and I were constantly antagonizing her. Like, and she loved every minute of it. She's like one of those people that she would like just say something stupid or funny to get us to going to like start picking on her. And she just sit there and giggle and laugh and just shut up. You guys are pigs. It's
Nice.
just, she just nailed it. And it's like, okay, now I kind of am into the whole psychic medium thing. There are people that I believe are gifted. I know for myself, like on investigations, as I've been doing this, I've been getting more and more sensitive, um,
Hmm.
picking up on things, more empathic. Would I say I'm a 100% psychic medium? No, but I'm definitely more in tune.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's just medium. Love it.
Yeah. I'm in a similar place too right now,
Oh.
like of really trying to, because I've been told by so many people, like, oh, you do have abilities, right? And when I go through like my
Mhm.
timeline, I'm like, yeah, maybe, but I'm not like cultivating
Right.
it really as like a full blown medium, but I'm opening myself up more so that, when I'm on site at a location and I'm just trying to get a good reading out of it, or just trying to feel it out, my intuition has ended up being correct. And then
Mhm.
I'm sitting there like, oh, holy crap.
Yeah.
Like,
I've
what do
been
I do?
Right.
experiencing that too, and I've been trying to, because like I always have things like, I don't know, I say it just pops into my head. I just will know something, or see something or whatever. And I'm not a psychic, I'm not a medium, whatever. But like these things would always happen, but I would just never say anything.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
then, somebody who is a medium would be like, "Oh, I'm seeing this, this, and this." And it's like, I had a little glimpse of that. Like maybe it was
Mhm.
1/100th of what you saw,
Yeah.
but I did see something that was right. So
Yeah.
I am trying to actually say it out loud more often now.
Yeah, I've noticed that if I'm going through an extremely stressful situation, and I've always joked that I only have abilities when there's a full moon out and like the planets are perfectly aligned.
Right.
Um, I had a death in the family last year, and I shouldn't have been investigating, but I was like, you know what? I could sit at home and be sad, or I can go out and do some investigating. I shouldn't have done that. Um, I should have I should have been kinder to myself, but I decided to go anyway. And lo and behold, for the first time since my car accident, I actually saw something like full out in front of me, and
Wow.
I'm like, okay, but the person didn't line up at all with the history of the house or the history of the town. And I'm like, this is like a 1920s, 1930s, like dapper type of man. And he described himself as a dandy. And I'm like, okay, leave it up to me to touch base with like the one queer and ghost queer in Pennsylvania.
Right.
That's the and he said he was just passing through because granddaddy fought on the wrong side. He was like this little southern dandy that came through, and I'm sitting here like, am I what? I'm like, what the heck? And we were asking him
Funny.
questions, and he was just and he was setting off the equipment too, like things were lining up with what I was picking up, and I'm sitting here like, holy crap. But it just so happened that night the planets were aligned and it was a full moon. And I'm like, did I just manifest my own joke, like my own abilities by
Right.
joking this for like 10 years? Like, it has to be a full moon and the planets are aligned, and
Yeah.
lo and behold, but I haven't been able to see it ever since. I haven't had that ever since, and I'm like, maybe I have to go through. Do I have to be in an extremely stressful situation in order for that to open up? I mean, if that's the case, no thanks, because
Right.
Right.
yeah. So
Yeah.
so
Well,
that was twice, twice in my
I
life.
know I know for me, first of all, our situation, you guys both had very religious parents. My mom was the opposite. She used to have my aunts and uncles and her friends over, and they would do the Ouija board and they would do seances in our dining room and
Oh
they would do
wow.
all this stuff. But anytime that I saw something, she would tell me, that's your eyes playing tricks on you, that's you're just tired,
Hmm.
all of
What the
these
hell?
things. And so I just kind of stopped. You just kind
Yeah.
of like ignore it, ignore it, ignore it, and then it does go away. Um,
Mhm.
so now looking back on it as an adult, I'm like, how dare you literally invite these things into our house
Mhm.
and then be like, oh no, 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 you didn't see that.
That's a little
And that,
gaslighting right there.
right?
Right.
Gonna spend the evening summoning spirits, and then one appears. Oh no, you're not seeing
Yeah.
that.
And then there's an African American man standing there with his two children at my doorway as my mom's having a seance downstairs right underneath my bedroom. And I'm like, Mom,
What?
who's in our house? And she's like, nobody. I'm like, I see a
Wow.
man. He's standing there. He has his daughter. She has pigtails. There's a little boy. And she's like, nobody's here. Okay, well, maybe your seance is working, but they're just coming upstairs to see me instead of seeing you.
That's amazing. And
Wow.
also, like, how rude.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I'm sitting there believing her, like, oh, yeah, I'm probably just tired. You're right. But
Oh my gosh.
Well, at least she was open to it. I don't understand. Like maybe she was trying to protect you in some way.
I
Like
Ooh.
guess
no, trying to like explain it away so you're not like freaking out as a little
it's
kid.
it is hard because like my
Mhm.
kids will say something and I don't. I do this all the time. Like this is my hobby and I still am like a little scared. I don't know what to say to them. Like
Mhm.
so I just kind of ask them like, how does that make you feel? Are you
Yeah,
scared?
I do the
Yeah.
same thing. I do the same thing because Eliza, my youngest, is like totally into it now. Like she's just sitting there on her computer. I'm like, "What are you doing?" She's like, watching these guys who like try to capture paranormal evidence, and I'm like, "Okay." And she's like, "What do you think about this?" And she's like, and then it just goes down the rabbit hole. Like I'm spending an hour like trying to tell her, "I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you, kid. I mean, to me, it
Yeah,
looks like it's a bug or dust." But she's like, "Well, what about this one?" I'm like, "I
right.
don't know. What do you believe?" But then she asked the hard questions like, "Do you really believe in ghosts?" I'm like, "I got to answer that with a question. Do you believe in ghosts?" So
Yeah.
like throw it back on her. I'm like, I just, I believe in I mean, I believe things have happened to me.
Mhm.
I've seen things that I can't explain, they're not bad. They're not all bad. It's like I'm trying to protect her, but I'd want her to be able to explore that herself too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard as a parent to like figure out what the fine line is. Like you want to protect them and not go over the deep end with this stuff, but you want them to be able to believe what they want to believe. So I don't know. I don't know how to explain that to them at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that can spiral really quickly too. Like if you say, "Oh yeah, the ghosts are real," then they start to freak out. Like you
Right.
never know.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen full grown adults like freak out over a bug on a surveillance video, and they think they have demons. So I'm like,
Right.
if an adult is reacting like this, then I get worried. Like, well, what about kids?
Yeah.
Right.
It gets a little
Yeah.
tricky.
True. Yeah.
So
Very true.
I actually volunteer at Madison Seminary, and I have a key to the building. Sometimes I have to meet people there to have furniture delivered. I have to go do work there, whatever. And when I first started, I told my kids that the seminary's not haunted. We just tell people it is so that they'll come and visit.
Mhm.
And I was like, I felt bad, but at the same time, I can't have them
Liar.
go there because I have to go all the time and I have to get things done and I have to take them there all the time. So I told them that it wasn't haunted because I didn't want them to get scared. But they learned the truth later.
They eventually do. They eventually do.
Yeah, I think your son and my daughter are going to start their own team.
Yeah. No, they love it though.
That's awesome. Yeah.
If anybody in the chat room has any questions for Alex, let us know.
Yeah, sorry, we're asking a million questions.
It's all good. We're just chatting. It's all good.
Oh, Sky did say that she hopes all is well. She misses y'all. Got to go. Love you, Sky. Thank you for showing up. Haven't seen you in a bit.
And I do agree. I saw that she said that she should have encouraged it. I do agree with that one.
Meanwhile, if I was even reading the Goosebumps books, my mom was like, "That's not allowed in my house." I'm like, "Okay."
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you afraid of the
paid.
dark? Goosebumps, scary stories to tell in the dark.
Yeah.
I had to read all of that at school, or if I did put it in my backpack where I checked it out, I had to like really be strategic, like almost like you put the porn magazine inside of like the math book. I basically had to do that.
You got your Goosebumps inside of your Holy Bible, and you're like,
yes,
reading.
Yeah. Yeah, I brought home Shel Silverstein's Where the Sidewalk Ends. It's a classic for kids. My mom read something. I don't even remember what the poem or story that she read was, but she got so pissed off that she started a meeting at the elementary school library to get
Shel
this book
Silverstein
banned. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Something about eating a baby, but he was a little bit on the creepy side anyways. Yeah. But that's why we loved him.
Yeah.
But I mean, just what? My mom, that's what I had to deal with as a kid. Like I wasn't allowed to play with Transformers. If my mom ever found out that I was a big Dungeons and Dragons head, I would have been brought in front of the church and prayed for right there and tried to be saved in front of everybody, the whole
My
congregation.
husband dealt with something similar with his aunt. Speaking of Dungeons and Dragons, I just happen to have a cookbook here.
Very nice. Awesome.
But yeah, he dealt with the same thing, and one of his aunts threatened to burn his books and everything, and his grandma had to intervene and be like, "Don't you dare," because that was Dungeons and Dragons. Clearly, it's the devil and satanic and all that fun stuff.
And it was kind of cool because later on when my wife and I got married, and by the way, Tony said congratulations on your marriage.
Oh, thanks, Tony.
We got married we had a hard time finding a church to get married at because my wife was already pregnant. Which I had already proposed to her before we found out she was pregnant.
You don't have to explain it to us. We don't care.
Well, yeah, I know, but Alex doesn't know the story, so I'm boring her with that little detail. But we go to this church and I'm like, it was so different because everybody's so nice and not judgy and coming up and talking like normal people. And they have this little area where kids are allowed to display their hobbies or their interests. And there's a whole corner in this little shelf dedicated to Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm like, praise Jesus, I found my church.
Praise Jesus, I found my church. That's so funny.
But I just found it interesting. Sage wanted to know, do you have a favorite location that you've been to?
And then Eddie is kind of like a follow-up.
What do I do?
Lines.
I'm wondering what
Okay.
location had the most intense experience for Alex. Mine was at Old South Pittsburgh Hospital.
Yeah. Okay. So, favorite location, it's got to be the Trivet Clinic. I mean, I wrote a whole book about the location. It's a location that has worn many hats in its existence. It started off as a hospital, then it became a supper club and a detox center at the same time. The
Oh
supper
wow.
Oh
club was
wow.
in the basement and the detox was on the
Weird.
main floor. Then it was a nursing home for 2 iterations, and then it became a private residence with a garden nursery on site. The garden nursery is still there, but now the building stands as like a haunted location. And there's also like a couple of feral cat colonies there, so there's lots of kitties.
Oh,
Um,
geez.
so I'm like, hey, ghosts and cats sold. I'm in. um,
Here's my
yeah,
money.
and yeah, and actually, that's the location where I've probably had some of my most intense experiences. Um, this location is reported to have over 70 ghosts. I'm not sure if I'm
Oh wow.
really on board, but the 70, but there's definitely a lot of spirits there, and I'm fairly convinced that either the building is collecting ghosts or there's a lot of people who pass through, to say
Mhm.
hi.
Yeah.
Um, somebody I interviewed for the book compared the Trivet Clinic to like the porch light being on at night. Like, when the porch light's on, you're welcome to come in. And the Trivet Clinic is the porch light for spirits. And I've always loved that analogy or that comparison.
Yeah. That's
Um,
cool.
yeah, so let's see. There's been a couple of intense experiences. One of them was actually making contact with the doctor's wife, who is not necessarily part of the ghost stories, but it just so happened one of my mediums was picking up on her and was able to name her. And I knew from the newspaper articles and from the owner, what he told me was she was a singer. She was an opera singer. She wanted to make it big. She wanted to be on stage. So to further engage with her, we played opera. Um, we played uh, we played Musetta's Waltz from La Boheme. And when that was happening, all of our electronics started to go off at the same time, like
Nice.
all over the basement. Um,
Nice.
and it was an emotional experience. I don't know. We all got really emotional after it. But then the debunker that I am, I was like, okay, maybe it was just the way that the music was playing that it was setting off everything. Let's play some Van Halen. So I started playing, Van Halen afterwards, and none of the equipment went off, like not even a
Nice.
flicker. But I also imagine I probably horrified that poor woman, was like, oh, opera, how lovely. And then it was like, bum, bum, bum,
Right.
ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, ba. You know,
Um.
very, just
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, anytime that we've played opera for her, she comes through. And one of the latest bits of data that we got from that was we actually picked up on a woman sighing while the music was playing. It was just this really ethereal, relaxed, just you know,
Aw.
Oh
like, I don't know, it was just really nice. So anytime, like,
yeah.
I'm there, that was intense for me. It was also very positive.
Yeah.
I try not to invoke trauma when I investigate. I try not to be like, "How did it feel to lose your whole family during the Civil War?"
Right.
Um, tell me
Is there
about the day
anybody
you
dead here?
died. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
tell me about how you died. I'm
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
more like, "Hey, do you like music? Yeah, okay, here's some music."
Right.
I've had a spirit like give me an apple pie recipe before through the
Stop it.
Phasma
What?
box.
That is so
Yeah,
cool.
so we kind of did a ghostly recipe swap.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Which I'm like, these are the kind of experiences I like. I know they don't make for good TV, but
Yeah.
I remember we were actually at the Jenny Wade house, and we were in the kitchen where Jenny was killed, and a lot of people kind of go for the obvious, like, oh, how did it feel like when Jenny died, blah, blah, blah. And we started to hear like apple pie ingredients on the Phasma box. And I'm like, oh, are we talking about apple pie? And it was like, yes. And, I was like, oh, you didn't say cinnamon. Do you use cinnamon in your apple pie? And they're like, oh, yes, I do. And it
Oh
was
my
just
gosh, I
like,
love it.
yeah, and I'm like, well, I can give you a recipe if you'd like. So I gave him a snickerdoodle recipe. I'm like, if you like cinnamon and you like cookies, um,
That's
here's
so cool.
here's a snickerdoodle recipe. And we heard, oh yum,
Oh
after I
my
was
god.
done. So I was like, I just did a recipe swap with a ghost, I think.
Yeah.
So
That is
Oh my
interesting.
gosh. I
Yeah.
love that kind of investigating, though.
Yeah, it
I
makes
mean,
more sense.
it's very
especially,
human. It's very
yeah,
human.
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, when you have somebody come to your house for the first time, they're not like asking you about all your trauma. You know what I mean? They're having normal conversations with you. Like, why should it be any different when you're doing an
Right.
investigation?
Right. It was it was just literally just chatting, and sometimes I just let the Phasmobox play because I
Mhm.
know it's a lot of phenoms, and I just let it go, and I just say, hey, how are you? My name's Alex. And depending how far I traveled, I'll say, oh, I just came from Washington, D.C. And I've noticed in certain locations that can resonate. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, it was just one of those like, oh, where am I at right now? Like, what room am I in? And it was like,
Yeah.
oh, kitchen. And just things like that. Like, tell me what you see around you. And
Yeah,
you know um
Yeah.
what's really like, what makes you happy, what brings you joy. Like,
right.
I find that
Right.
spirits are more willing to talk about what brings them joy than
Mhm.
what makes them feel down. And I've noticed that I don't encounter I don't encounter as much anymore with like spirits that are suffering, or
Right.
Mhm.
occasionally we'll get the ones like, ooh, this is not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially at the orphanage in Gettysburg, right across the street from the
Uh-huh.
Jenny Wade house is the orphanage. That
Right.
place, I don't have a lot of positive experiences there. It's mostly sad for me because of the kids that are there, and
Right.
then whatever entity is there that many believe is Rosa Carmichael is nasty. I just don't. I just
Yeah.
nope, nope, nope.
Yeah.
That's my nope.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, so overall, I mean, I have really positive experiences when I investigate. But I didn't always investigate with that amount of like, oh, I'm gonna go in with like positivity. And
Yeah.
we were all in our early years like, how did you die?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Make that thing light up.
Yep.
Not this many times. Just like
Yeah.
you're not a circus animal. They're not. They're human.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're all human. Stop
And I
telling them
find
what to do.
I have really good experiences when I just do that because I think that they're finally like, they're like, oh, yes, someone I could finally talk
Yeah.
to. They
Hmm.
just don't want to ask, what's your name? What year is it? What's your,
Yeah.
they don't, I mean, like, they're probably so refreshed to have somebody come in with a positive attitude, not
Hmm.
Yeah.
puffing their chest and, acting like an asshole. And, they probably just like being treated like human beings.
Yep. I mean, I don't know who I was talking to at the Jenny Wade house, but they were so excited about their apple pie recipe.
Yeah.
I did try baking it. I mean, it was
I'm excited
okay.
about the apple pie
I'm
recipe.
not going to go back and report to that sphere of like, hey, your apple pie was a little
Right.
dry, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
that could incite some activity of like, what?
right? You want to anger a bunch of
This is a
like
blue
Civil War
ribbon
time.
recipe.
Yeah,
My
That is
husband
so
liked
funny.
it.
yeah.
Yeah. That is amazing. Oh, that
It's
is such a great
fun.
story.
And like I like things that are, I at the seminary we found a newspaper article that talked about what the residents were going to be having for Thanksgiving or what they had for Thanksgiving or something. And it was like
Oh,
all
nice.
these like really weird things. Like I hadn't heard of probably 75% of what was on this list of things. And I was like, how
Mhm.
fun would it be to find recipes for all of these things and just make it and come in here and all have like a Thanksgiving dinner together, and just
Nice.
see what that like stirs up. Because if that's something that they were used to eating all the time, you know,
Right.
next time you go, bring apple pie with you and be like, this is my recipe.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
I like
Nice.
doing weird stuff like that.
There's a creator I follow on TikTok, and I think he's branched out to Facebook and Instagram as well, but his name is Dylan Hollis. He bakes or cooks like historic
Yes.
recipes, and
Oh
then he
my god, I
tries
Yes. I
them.
love
know.
him. He
I
has a cookbook
love that
now.
guy.
Yes, I'm
Oh
Yes.
so
my
excited
gosh.
for that. I feel like
Yeah.
I could use some of that though, because some of the recipes he brings up, he's like, it was like water pie from
Oh
1912,
Yeah.
and then it actually was good. And he's like,
right.
what?
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
reactions are the best. But I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe this could be a whole new method of ghost hunting. Look through these
Right.
Yeah.
old historic recipes, make them, and bring them to the location of like, hey, you want some water pie? And that's an actual real recipe for anyone that's
Yeah.
watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
Um,
I saw that one.
Yeah.
I love that guy.
Yeah.
What's
Oh
his
gosh.
name?
Dylan Hollis.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. He calls
It-
eggs like eggy and milk
Eggy.
is
Yeah.
moo juice.
Yeah.
Oh
Floof
yeah.
powder.
Floof powder. Yes.
Cinnamon.
Yeah, he's got a cookbook. It's called like Baking in Yestertime or something.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is brilliant.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I have all my grandma's like it's a literal box of recipes, but it's like magazine clippings and like
Nice.
box cutouts, and
Yeah.
some of it's like handwritten by her. And I keep meaning to like go through that and like type it all in because I mean that paper is only
Yeah.
going to last for so much longer.
Or even just take pictures of it all together
Yeah.
so that you have at least like a digital copy of it.
Mhm.
Because yeah, those written out index cards and all that stuff, that makes me nervous. It's so easy to spill something on it or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
At least take pictures of it.
Yeah,
That'd be
I mean,
cool.
my grandma made a banging taco pie, and when I found that recipe card, I was like, "Oh," I was like, "Yes." That's gonna be how you get me riled up in the afterlife. Anyone
Taco pie?
investigating? Yeah, taco. My grandma's taco pie. Like, make
Okay.
me some taco pie, and I'll
Ooh, that
manifest.
sounds good.
I'll be there.
I'm gonna bust out the Ouija board and ask my mom for her cabbage roll recipe.
Oh, there you go.
That'd be a long Ouija board session. 1 CUP.
There's actually a
Speed it
lot
up,
of
Mom. Could we just do an EVP session?
Right.
I've seen a lot of graves where women will put their recipe for whatever, like their
Oh
potato
yeah, and it's
salad
like
or whatever.
over my dead
What?
body, and then it's like there.
Literally over their dead body. It's like their potato salad recipe. I love it.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's expensive because like headstones, you have to pay like per letter to engrave that shit. But they're like, no, put my whole recipe.
Nice. Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Like,
That's a whole new way we could investigate. Now, that's a show I would watch.
see, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's a show I would watch. Actually, pitch it. Somebody
Right?
pitch it.
Because it gets discouraging to watch, especially when you go to these locations. And like I personally love these locations. I love hearing the stories of the people who lived there. I love connecting with these spirits. And then, you watch people talk about it like the whole building is filled with demons. And you're like, but what about Carol and her apple pie recipe? Like she's not a demon,
Right.
So it just gets discouraging to see everybody wants to say there's demons everywhere and
Yeah, the Trivia Clinic is dealing with something that's similar there, and that's actually what motivated me to write the book. And even then, even after the book came out, I saw there was a couple YouTubers that went to the Trivia Clinic, and like they made 2 videos on the location, and they were both like referring to demons. Like, did we talk to a demon at the Trivia Clinic? And I'm like, no, you didn't. Like,
right.
I can confidently say, and I have this backed up by an actual demonologist, if there was a demon at the Trivia Clinic, it's not there anymore. And if a demon is at the Trivia Clinic, then someone else brought it in. Like it's
Right.
one of those like I've never had anything like that happen, but that location does have a tendency to give you back the energy that you put out. So if these
Yeah.
guys are coming in, I call them broast hunters, are coming in with like
Love it.
if they're coming in
Oh,
with those
God.
intentions, I mean, I don't blame the spirits at the Trivia Clinic for scratching back or biting back. I mean,
Right.
it's
Right.
it's I've always wondered, am I going to be a biter or a scratcher in the afterlife? Because since everyone always gets bitten or scratched, I'm like,
I'm gonna be
I
like
don't
a
like
cat and just knock shit over all the time. Just that's
right.
it. I'm not gonna hurt people. I'm not gonna do that. But
Yeah.
There'll be a
gonna
lot of EVPs for me just telling them to shut up.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
How did you die? Shut up.
I think people forget that, like, they are spirits. They were people, at one point. And if you walk around, if you go to a store and there's 100 people in there, there's bound to be 20 of them that are complete assholes. So, like, what makes you think that there's not going to be negative spirits? Okay, but that doesn't mean they're demons. They're just assholes.
Right.
I like that. Not a demon, just an asshole.
Yeah. And
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, if you are an asshole when you're alive, and then you could be an asshole when you're dead with zero consequences, like what's the person going to do? Punch
Right.
you? Why
Yeah.
would you not like overdo it?
Right. Right.
True.
Especially if you run into people who you think deserve it. It's, it's
Right?
Right.
yeah.
I mean, if
A
I was
lot of
haunting
times.
some of these locations, I would be a total asshole to some of these guys coming in there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
A
Flex,
lot of
don't come
times
in to
at the
flexing your
seminary.
muscles at me, brother.
Yeah. If people say like, "Oh, I got scratched," my first question is,
Yeah.
"What'd you do?"
Yep.
Right.
I do the same thing at the Trivet
Yep.
Clinic. Since I put out the book and everything, I'll get people emailing me or telling me their stories, and they're like, "Oh, I got scratched," and I'm like, I say the same thing. What'd you do?
Yep.
Walk me through the 5 minutes before
Yep.
it happened.
Yeah.
Tell me
Right.
what happened right before that.
Yep.
Oh, well, I was telling the ghost to show itself and I called it a dick. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well, there you go. That's why. That's why you
Yeah.
got scratched.
Yeah. And they probably were standing there screaming at you, but you can't hear them. So that was their way of communicating that you could understand.
hmm
If you're not a psychic and you can't see and hear the things that they're saying, then they got to do whatever they got to do to get your attention.
Yep. Yep.
You know, I've been going to the seminary for 5 years now, and I have never been scratched or, bit or anything like that. So maybe it's
Right.
a you
Same.
problem, not a building problem.
Same.
Mhm.
Like, even in some of the more negative locations, I've been touched and it startled me,
Right.
but I've never been scratched and I've never been bitten. And
Mhm.
Right.
It's
So
just like interacting with the living. You're going to get whatever energy you put out right back at you.
exactly.
hmm
Yeah.
exactly.
That's what I want to tell
And
people. Like, have
before,
you tried not
yeah,
being a dick and see what that does for you?
Revolutionary new ghost hunting method.
right.
Don't be a dick.
Don't be an asshole.
I know
Or
it's
dick.
a complicated theory. And it'll take a lot of practice for some people, but
Mhm.
Ghost Hunting 101 by Denise Smith.
yeah,
Chapter 1. Don't be a dick.
yeah,
The
the end.
end. One
The
page. There we
end.
go.
Also, I learned very early on that flashlights make shadows disappear, so I always tend to carry at least 2 flashlights. Those are my
Nice.
2 tips for ghost hunting for anybody.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, good.
if I'm being honest, I went to I wasn't doing any sort of investigations or anything. I went to the seminary for a flashlight tour just because my husband and I lived 20 houses away. We needed something to do. The kids were gone.
Mhm.
So we just went, and I fell in love with the building and the history of the building and the plans for the building. And I just kind of got roped into the paranormal. So even after
Hmm.
all this time, I still get very scared. Like, I'm not the person that hears a noise and runs into that room to see what it was. I'm the one who's like, all right, you guys, let me know what it is. Let me know if you need
Right.
anything. I'll be over here. Um, so I
Nice.
actually do carry 2 flashlights with me at all times.
Oh, that's amazing. That's awesome. I
I'm
love it.
a scaredy cat.
I have my moments still sometimes. I mean, when I was at Hillview
yeah.
Manor, someone brought up, I'll have to remember the mashed potatoes next time I'm there. I was alone in this room that was a cafeteria, but then it became like the hair salon. And I was by myself, and I had one of my REM pods with me. I was by myself in this room, and I just started talking about like, oh, I really need to get my hair cut, and the REM pod started going off, and I'm like, oh, okay, but I was completely by myself. The place was pitch black and there was like nothing but a red light from the exit sign illuminating, and this whoever I was communicating with was very active and answering my questions on the REM pod, and I'm just sitting here like by myself. Don't freak out. Don't freak out. It's fine. It's just a person. It's just a person. You
Right.
brought up hair and
right.
they probably agree that you need a haircut. It's fine. It's fine. you know?
I know. Sometimes on an investigation, I'll be like, if you're here, can you knock that over or whatever? And I'm like, what am I doing? If they knock that over, I'm gonna fucking run. Why would I even ask for that? Like
Yeah.
you have those moments where you're like, oh, I'm gonna be brave, and then you start to something starts to happen, and then you're like, okay, maybe I'm not as brave as I thought
Oh
I
my
was.
God. That's so funny.
It happens to me often. I'm like,
Right.
oh yeah, nope, I didn't want that to happen. What am I doing?
Why did I ask for this?
They're just giving me what I want. Why am I freaking
Right.
out? Oh man.
Oh gosh.
Oh, that's so cool, Sage. Nice.
Nice.
In that same room.
See, I love when stuff like that happens.
Yeah.
That is really cool. Oh,
I
I love
I
still
will
have
get
not
there
been.
someday.
Have you?
Hmm?
I
Yep.
still have not
It's
been
on
to
our
Hilton.
list.
Yeah.
Oh, you should totally go. I mean, I was there for HillCon last year, and I'm going to be coming back this summer. And yeah, I mean, I didn't stay for the entire night because I'm,
Yeah.
once you hit a certain age, like I turn into a pumpkin after 10 p.m.
Oh yeah.
Um,
I completely understand that one.
and I've learned, like, especially when I do paracons, it's like I can either do the paracon or
Yeah.
do the investigation that night.
Right.
I can't do both. Like
It's
it's
such a
one or
long
the other.
day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I need to go back to my hotel and sleep for like 3 hours if I even have a
Right.
chance of making it past midnight.
Yeah.
John, I will not be, unfortunately. By April I will be in Richmond. I'll be in Richmond for RavenCon. My con schedule got really busy really quick. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do this. Yeah, I'll do that. And then I'm looking at my schedule and I'm like, oh crap. Um, May I'll be in Charleston, South Carolina um for Atomicon, and these are all like geek sci-fi cons.
Yeah.
And then I'll also be at the Trivia Clinic as well the next weekend after that. And then June I'll be doing Con Carolinas, which is like Charlotte's version of Dragon Con.
Yeah.
And then I'll be at Troy Taylor's Haunted America in Illinois like a couple weeks later. So it's
Nice.
Wow.
yeah. And then July I'll be at another con. And then August, I'll be late August, early September, I'll be at Dragon Con. So I'm like,
Damn.
in August, I'll be at Hillview Manor for HillCon. So I'm like, oh
Nice.
my gosh.
I think we need to look into that one, D.
Hillcon?
Yeah.
I'm
Do
down.
it. Do it.
All right.
It's a good one.
That's
Um,
been a long time coming. I've missed it the last several years. So, and it's been only going on for I think like maybe 4 or 5 years now. So
Yeah,
we got
it's
to get
pretty
involved
young
with that one.
still.
Yeah. So I want to get kind of like into the spooky stuff here.
Yeah.
Why don't you explain what that is? What you do with that? I know it's like a lot of content creating. You're on all over TikTok, and I love your content. By the way,
Oh, thank you.
it's so right on.
Yeah, so the spooky stuff was essentially a brand that I created. Because I have a team, the
Mhm,
Association of Paranormal Study. Not saying that they're more serious, but it's more like heavy research.
mhm.
I would like it to kind of become like what the Rhine Research Center is and what ASIP
Yeah.
is, SPR. Um, that's the kind of like the resource I would like it to become. But as you've probably seen my content, I'm very opinionated. I also like to make jokes and be a bit goofy,
Uh
but
huh.
I didn't want to take the team in that direction. Um, and plus I wanted to be able to, talk and say things without hopefully my team suffering, like in case I offended
Right.
somebody.
right.
Right.
Um, and so I created the spooky stuff. It turned into my pandemic project. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so and I made it because I like talking spooky stuff. I like the spooky stuff. And it took off. Like it really took off. The blog took off. I had a podcast once upon a time, but it was just too much.
Yeah.
Way too much. But yeah, and then on TikTok it really took off as well, and it took off on YouTube as I mean, I'm almost at 5,000 subscribers on YouTube now.
Nice.
And
Very
then
good.
TikTok, I think I'm at 145,000 followers, which I'm like, wow,
Nice.
who are you all? Who are you all people? Like what?
Right.
Like
Right.
what? Um yeah, so it was just really it was a place for me to be a bit more informal about the
Yeah.
paranormal.
Mhm.
Um and try to make it more accessible, and inadvertently I ended up like appealing to a younger generation at the same time,
Yeah.
which I'm happy about because unfortunately there are a lot of people in this community, the veterans, the long-standing veterans who've been doing this 20, 30 years. They're
Yeah.
very like gatekeepy about the paranormal,
Oh
and
yeah. Yeah. For
the
sure.
paranormal community as we know it and the paranormal culture as we know it, it's changing. Like it's
Yeah.
changing because these kids who grew
Constantly.
up with
Yeah.
ghost hunters and ghost adventures, they're
Hmm.
now old enough to go out and investigate themselves.
Right.
And they want to know more about this, but because like they may emulate a certain TV celeb for a period of time, they get ostracized immediately instead
Yeah.
of using this as a teachable moment of like, well, hey, instead of being combative, here's another way you can do
Right.
this.
Yeah.
So just trying to make the paranormal a bit more accessible, give a seat at the table for everybody, as long as you're not a
Right.
dick.
Yeah.
I don't give seats to dicks. But I mean, even like in my generation or older, there's, people who have been interested who want to dive deeper. They're reaching
Mhm.
roadblocks as well. Like, investigating with Stormy Daniels. Like Stormy had a really
Yeah.
hard time getting into this community. And um David Childers connected us, and I ended up investigating with her a couple of years ago, and she was fantastic. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sitting here like, yeah, I'd investigate with you more. Like, you're
Yeah.
great. But because of her history, there's a lot. She gets a lot of animosity, and I tell these
Yeah.
people, I'm
Right.
like, if you think Stormy's the only sex worker in the paranormal, I have some news for you.
Yeah.
I have some news
Yeah.
for you,
She's
or
just the
she's
most vocal and the most
yeah,
like
Right.
popular for it. But yeah,
right,
I
yeah,
know of some. Um, which I will not say on the show. But I always say that I think it's so important for the younger people to get into it because I feel like, people our age and older we have our equipment that we use all the time and we know it's right and we don't ever hardly change it. There might be like little
hmm
changes, but it's going to be these kids who understand technology way better than we ever could.
Mhm.
And they're going to come up with something that's going to be like groundbreaking.
hmm
And I don't care what people say. I feel like these kids need to be in the field. They,
yeah.
they might do it different, but maybe
Absolutely.
that's not a bad thing.
Right.
It's not. I mean, just look at paranormal media from the past 20 years. The formula has not changed
Hmm.
at
Mhm.
all.
Yeah.
And a lot of these kids, I'm saying kids, I mean, I guess if I was a teen parent, like I'm old enough to be their moms now,
Yeah.
you know, um, they're breaking barriers and they're
Yeah.
doing some
Right.
really interesting things. And also, they understand media and what appeals to wider audiences much more
Right.
efficiently than a
Yeah.
lot of us, even myself. Um, I think they do have something to offer, but yeah, I'm noticing just a lot of like, at least with the long-term vets in the field, and I don't know if it comes from bitterness or it comes from a fear of change, but
Yeah.
they close off these younger people
Yeah.
often
Hmm.
unless they're copying what they do to a T and then they're
Exactly.
Right.
accepted. But I'm like, we need to change things up a bit. Like,
Right.
and
Yeah.
plus the paranormal, like the spirit world, whatever we're going to call it, the other side, that's going
Yeah.
to change too as more people are passing away,
Right.
like
Right. Right.
my
Yeah.
mom's generation is now more of them are getting into the other side, these
Right.
baby
Right.
boomers. And I don't know how much longer we're going to have just like people in Victorian clothing, if we even have that. It's going to be people dressed in like neon colors and
Right.
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 futuristic looks in like
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
10, 20 years. So
Yeah.
it's going to
The
change.
flock of
Like,
seagulls cut.
could you imagine? Like, an apparition is manifesting, but something about their head is very weird.
Does anybody smell Aquanet? Like, I swear I smell Aquanet.
Right. Right. Or we start hearing like goofy movie power line, like,
Yeah.
eye to eye, it's like,
But
what?
I mean, I think that what people don't understand is just because these kids are doing different things doesn't mean that like their way of doing it is going to totally go away. Like, look, we
Right.
we just talked about this at the beginning of the show. We still use pendulums. We still use Ouija
Yeah.
boards. Like,
Mhm.
our ways are not going to go away just because there's
Exactly.
No.
new ways that these kids come up with to investigate.
Exactly.
Like, there's still a place for everybody, and it doesn't matter if these kids get more popularity and whatever. That doesn't mean it's pushing you out. Like, we're just
No.
getting bigger. We're
Yep.
a bigger community. It's not like there's only room for so many people.
Mhm.
Yep. It's having that abundance mindset. And yeah, it's because I notice that a lot. And yeah, you're right. I'm just wondering, like, does it come from a place of fear, or does it come from a
Right.
place of jealousy or bitterness, or
Or
maybe it's all the
arrogance. Yeah.
above, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
arrogance?
I think it's a good mixture of both.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I really do.
yeah,
But I like going back to what you said about making it more accessible. I think that these newer kids, and I feel weird calling them kids because I follow them and I'm friends with a lot of them now. But they make me feel like a kid. Maybe that's why I like them so much by
Yeah.
talking to them. But you know, with things like TikTok and YouTube, you can get the message across in a 5-minute video.
Yeah.
And let's face it, people don't have the patience anymore for a 2-hour documentary of the same
No.
thing over and over again.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's very formula. I'd rather watch a quick, you know, nice spread of photos with a voiceover about why this place is haunted, and then like a walkthrough and something happened. But I want it to be done and over with like in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, they understand the algorithm.
Right.
You know, and you know, people are interested in the small doses. They, you know, and that what gets them into it, not watching 2 hours of somebody sitting in the dark asking questions, usually stupid questions, for
Yeah.
a light to go off. You know, it's more interesting. And a lot of these younger kids, like I'll just throw his name out there, Kalani. We had him on our show. He's a great guy. I mean, very personable, really cool guy, down to earth. And a lot of his videos are like his TikTok videos, which is really his base. He just walks around the place and gives like a quick history of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then like,
Yeah.
you know, his Patreon and his YouTube is like where he does the full investigations.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is his full-time gig now. I
Yeah.
mean, you know,
Good for
it's
him. That's
yeah.
I think, I mean, okay, most of us, when we talk about our origin story, we talk about how we were interested in it and all we could do was read books and all we could do was whatever because we didn't know that going and doing investigations
Right.
was a thing. Like
Right.
you didn't know that you could like book a building and get equipment
Yeah.
and go like do an
Yeah.
actual investigation. Like we should be happy that these kids like have access to all of it and they don't ever have that whole period of their lives that like we
Mhm.
missed out on because we didn't even know it was a thing. Like
yep.
be happy that
Yeah.
they know about it and that they want to continue it and they're not like, wow, those old people are weird, right? They want to continue it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nancy, we would be happy to have you.
Yes. I mean, you can haunt my house for God's sake. We love you so much.
If you have recipes too, you know,
Yes,
bring the
bring
recipes.
them.
Yes.
Nancy is an avid quilter and also she
Yes.
plays Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that.
She plays Dungeons and Dragons with the same people for the last like 22 years or something.
That's
every
amazing.
Monday night. And then
I've always wanted to like find a location where we have maybe spirits from like the 80s, 90s and maybe try
Yeah.
to do like a ghost campaign, like a just
Right.
with like play D&D with spirits, you know,
Yeah.
like what would
Right.
happen? What would happen? You know, have the
My wife
investigator be
always
the
jokes
DM.
around. She's like,
Yeah.
have you seen an entity yet with bell bottoms?
Oh my
Or
god.
is it always Victorian dress? I'm like, nope. No. First of all, I really have not seen. I've not yet seen like a full body apparition.
Mhm.
It's always like some weird like thing that I can't understand, like misty thing,
Yeah.
or maybe just a face that appears and goes away. I haven't seen
Mhm.
a full body, so I can't tell you what they were. But yeah, she's like, I just want you to see somebody with like a big, you know, big humongous hair and some bell
Yes.
bottoms. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
I wonder if you like get assigned a Victorian dress when you pass away. You know?
It's the
Like at
uniform. It's the
Disneyland, you
dead
go to
person
work.
uniform.
It's like a Catholic school uniform. Like this is
Yeah.
what you are allowed to wear. You can
All right, time to put on the powdered wig and the Victorian dress again.
for the top hat or
You
All right,
know,
you're assigned lady in white, you're lady in black, you're lady
Yeah.
in brown.
I've
Go.
I've talked about this with friends. I'm like, you know what? Sometimes I wonder, especially with some of these locations, you know, like Waverly Hills that gets action every night.
Yeah.
Lord,
Yeah.
I could not imagine talking to people every day, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh my god.
And I'm like, I'm wondering if there's like shifts, like ghost shifts. It's like, okay, Alex, tonight you are at Trans Allegheny
Yeah.
and you are
Yeah.
going to be the tall shadow in the hallway.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, and it's like you check in, or next week you're gonna be at the USS Hornet and you are going to be a soldier. And it's like,
Right.
okay, you know, it's
Yeah.
like what if
And
that's
like
that's what it is?
here's what you're allowed to do. You're
Yeah.
allowed to turn on this certain equipment. You
Right.
can let them see you no more than 2 times throughout the night. You know, don't get on any recordings. Make sure you're not ever recorded because heaven forbid we have video evidence.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Gosh,
they
I
have
feel like
their
Give them just
fiction
enough so they'll
novel.
pay money to come back,
yeah, they got their
but not
checklist.
too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's a fiction novel in the making, like
Yeah.
young adult. Man, I have to write that down.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other one, oh my gosh, did you guys ever see the TikTok? It got shared so much. So many people sent it to me where the lady's like pretending like she's two ghosts that are communicating with
Yes.
this person, and she's
Yeah.
like, murder. And then she's like, and then they're laughing, like,
I've seen that one. It's so
and then she's like,
funny.
wait. Am I
Yeah.
dead? Like, I wonder if they're like that, you know? Like, just
Right. It's like,
messing around.
I'm gonna freak him out. Demon.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
I'm gonna say their name. Hang on.
Yeah.
Zach.
Yeah. Right. First, slice your apples, then add cinnamon and sugar.
And then people are
Well-
always so freaked out when they know their name, but like, okay, all night you've been calling each other, like yelling down the hall for somebody, like, Goose, where
Right.
you at? And then they're like, oh my God, how did they know my name? Like, it's been said 150 times since you got here. Like, relax.
Yeah.
They're not gonna go home with you.
Right. Love it. Love
They
it.
think that like
It's
the
fucking-
only time they're observing us is that, 10 minutes where you're investigating. No, you've been there
Yeah.
all night. They're
Mhm.
paying attention.
They're still there watching you, and
Right. Just because you're not talking
Yeah.
to them doesn't mean they're not like seeing what you're doing.
right. Well, and there's that whole thing where people get the best EVPs when they're having side conversations with
Mhm.
their friends,
Exactly. Yes.
like
Yep.
Yeah.
it's like, oh, they're talking about pizza. Yeah, I like pizza,
Yeah.
pepperoni.
Yeah. We usually have somebody recording if we're like doing a historical walkthrough, and we've actually have recorded some of the best EVPs just like by listening to the guy tell us about the place, and then you hear like, yeah, that's right, or it's like
I
agreeing
didn't
or
say that.
disagreeing.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. He's full of shit. Don't listen to that
So
asshole.
funny.
He's full of shit. That's not the way it happened.
I always think about that when I'm doing tours. Like, I wonder if they're
Yeah.
like, I didn't say that. Or that's not my name.
We've gotten some interesting ones where they react to the equipment. Like we were doing the Estes method at the Mary Washington House in Fredericksburg, Virginia. This was the mother of George Washington. So, she was pretty important. And we were in the room on the second floor where George Washington would stay when he visited. But we were doing the Estes method, and I was under in a different room, different area, and my team members were talking to. They were pretty sure it may have been George or Mary, but one of the two. And I'm just spouting off what I'm hearing, in the spirit, in the spirit box. And I guess at this time they were introducing like the cat toys to whatever spirits are there. And my team member was honest, and he said, these are cat toys, toys for cats. And I kid you not, I heard on the spirit box, I'm not a cat. Don't say meow. And my friend was also the manager of the Mary Washington House, and she's like, yeah, that's Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I heard, I'm not a cat. Don't say meow. And I didn't realize at the same time they were talking about the cat toys.
That's awesome.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That is so funny.
Like, hey, here's something that lights up. It is a cat toy. I'm not a cat.
Right. And then, like, you think about it too, like, we have crazy ass equipment. Like, imagine if you lived in a time where you walked around with a candle and that was your light, and you didn't have anything that plugs in, there's no electricity, whatever. And then we come in with a cat toy that looks like it's glass, and we're like, hey, can you kick that or whatever? And it's gonna light up. And the only thing that they've seen light up like that is lightning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just.
What is this dark magic?
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. I mean, so much of our equipment, like, we try to explain it to them, like, oh, just go touch that diode. Like, they don't know what the hell that is.
And they're like, the what node? What?
What? Yeah. I always try to like show how to do things. Like, you could just go here. And I tried to never say like, just touch this, it's not going to hurt you. Like, I don't know that it's not going to hurt them. I've never been a spirit. I don't know what that's going to do to their energy. So I hate to see people say like, oh, can you just touch that? Just take your energy from this Jacob's ladder. It's not going to hurt you. I'm sorry, what?
Excuse me, the what now?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm afraid of those damn things. I mean, I wouldn't even go there with those things.
Yeah,
That's
like,
live electricity. What the hell are you playing with that for?
Just touch it. It's fine. Get your energy. we don't know that the
I
stuff's
learned my
not gonna-
lesson messing with that kind of stuff when I was walking around with an EM pump that happened to be turned on for about an hour in my back pocket.
Whoopsie
I started getting
daisy.
like dizzy, and I'm like, "What the hell is going on? I have a headache. I don't know what's going on." And then I'm unloading all my crap that I'm carrying around with me. I'm like, "Oh shit! I had this
No,
EM pump in my back pocket for like
Oh
an
my
hour."
gosh.
I'm like, God damn it!
clearly
I'm
it's
like
a
feeling
demon.
the effects of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm like
it was a demon.
dummy.
You were probably possessed.
Right?
Totally a
I'm having
demon.
a total empathic experience here, guys. I'm like sick. I'm nauseous. I'm seeing things.
It might have been
It's
Satan
like,
himself. I don't know.
check your back pocket, dumbass.
Yeah. Nice. Nice.
Well, that's a thing that people don't understand too, is like, if you're in a location that does have electricity and you're in a certain room and it just happens to have the electrical box in it, and you're like, oh, I'm feeling certain ways, like look into what electromagnetic whatevers do to your body, and you
Right.
feel on edge, you feel like you have goosebumps,
Mm-hmm.
you feel dizzy, but again, it's probably demons.
Yeah, people have been hospitalized because they've had such high
Right.
exposure to that shit in their house.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's nothing to
Yeah.
mess around with.
I had a client for a residential case who worked in IT support, and she thought she had a demon in her apartment.
Mhm.
And when I went to go visit, I didn't realize she had like a dozen computers all
Yeah.
on
Oh my
in
gosh.
this living room. And I'm sitting here like, I mean, I turned on my K2 meter and it's red.
Yeah.
And I hadn't even pointed it towards anything. It was on the coffee table and it was red. And I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
yo, I can tell you right now what the
Yeah.
issue is.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we don't have to do an investigation.
Yeah.
This is the issue. Move the computers or spread them out a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
Get them out if you can. I guarantee you're going to feel much better.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've
And then,
had a
like we
couple
talked,
residential cases. Go ahead.
like we talked about with the power of your mind and what you can
Mhm.
Yeah.
convince yourself of. So if you're
Oh, yeah.
convinced that
Right.
there's a demon in your house, there's going to be some weird shit that's happening, but it's your fault. You know what I mean? Like you're making it happen or causing it to happen.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. We caught a guy. Well, we didn't catch, like, he wasn't trying to like pull one over on us, but his daughter was the one having all these crazy experiences, and like the center of it seemed to be in her bedroom.
Mm.
So Mike and I were doing a sweep. We went over there and kind of did like the light version of a paranormal investigation, when really we were just getting base ratings on everything. And we definitely
Right.
felt weird in her bedroom, and plus, I mean, she had it painted black. She was like, she was a very dark person anyways. So,
Mhm.
And she just had a lot of stuff happening. But we're doing the investigation, and we go down to the basement, and we're like, okay, nobody's around. Let's start taking like actual like EMF readings and just checking the electrical and everything. There was this huge ungrounded electrical line that ran the whole length of their house that was hooked in their basement through this like little tunnel out to a self-installed hot tub.
Wow.
And so this was running along the whole base of their house, and it's basically hooked up right outside of her room. So she's got it running underneath, and then like all that power
Oh my
like
gosh.
concentrated right outside of the corner of her room. And
Ooh.
we tried to tell this guy, I'm like, listen, this is what's causing a lot of this could be causing her illness. I mean, she was very sick too. I'm
Mhm.
like, this has got something you have. Oh no, I know what I'm doing. This guy, so we just, what do you do?
Right.
We told him what we knew it was, and we had to say, okay, we had to walk away from it. I mean, I don't know whatever happened with the situation. Like we always try to keep
Wow.
cases open and keep in contact with people, but this guy just wasn't willing to admit that he
Mm.
hooked up his hot tub wrong and he was affecting his whole family.
That's terrible.
That is terrible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is why we don't really do residentials anymore. Besides, we've been duped into a couple of times into it becoming a ghost hunting party at somebody's house.
I hate that.
Yeah.
It's like I'm happy to do that if you just tell me.
Right.
But don't like say, oh, you need help, and then I come over and then like you have your neighbor and two of your girlfriends over.
Right.
And I'm like,
it's exactly what happened.
Yep. And they're drinking
exactly
wine
what happened to us. We drive like 2 hours to this place because this woman was renting a house that she couldn't keep clients in because they kept saying it was haunted, this, that, and the other thing. And she's like, well, we really need your help. So we went down there. We went with full gear because it's 2 hour drive. Everything she was saying over like the emails and the phone conversations, which we had plenty before we decided to go down there,
Hmm.
it seemed like she had a legit excuse. We get down there. She walks in with her 2 girlfriends. They have wine. They have been drinking all night, and they're just like wanting to watch us. Like this is like a live Ghost Adventures. This is going to be awesome. I'm like, no, this is not how
Yeah.
this works.
Yeah.
We wasted. So we just like we already did. So we're gonna do the ghost hunt, but we're just gonna just do it like we're doing a public hunt and just like show them how everything works. And this is why this little
Oh
light
my
goes off and
gosh.
on, and it's like, oh, so annoying,
Oh my
so
gosh.
annoying.
Wow.
All that driving and
Lame.
all that work for false pretense of needing help. But
Right.
Ugh.
I don't know.
No bueno.
Yeah.
No, it was no fun.
Ugh.
So I know you're a writer, and I
Hmm.
know that as of recently you have the Hamptonville Hauntings release.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit. That's about the Trevette Clinic, which you
Yep.
actually already talked a little bit about.
Yeah, yeah. So this is actually one of my favorite places to investigate in North Carolina, if not the whole South. It's a very accessible place. North Carolina is kind of a tricky state to find spaces to investigate in because
Hmm.
there's a lot of teams that have exclusive contracts with locations. And
Oh,
on the
really?
plus side, I can see why, but also on the other
Yeah.
side, it's like, so nobody else can get in there. So I just
All
have
right.
to take your claims as true, or it's a little tough. So I was
Hmm.
really grateful to find the Trivet Clinic, Trivet Clinic, depending who you talk to, it's Trivet or Trivette. Um, it's kind of funny how that works because I'll say Trivet with one person and they're like, no, it's Trivet. I'm like, okay, Trivet. No, it's Trivette. Okay. But
Okay.
yeah, so I've been investigating this place since 2018, and
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah, so I was encountering, some of the activity I talked about tonight with the music, the opera.
Yeah.
There's spirits. There seem to be spirits from every chapter of this building's existence, like from when it was a
Uh-huh.
clinic, the nursing home. I haven't really gotten a lot. Well, I didn't get a lot from when it was a residence. I mean, there were a couple things that happened to the old eldest son in the family who lived there. He had a lot of things happen. His sister, his little sister, also seen a couple things. But the
Hmm.
youngest, who actually ended up living there the longest, didn't encounter anything, which I thought was interesting. But
Yeah.
since the book came out, I've had people who were connected to the building when it was a nursery that are now reporting to me that they've had experiences. And I didn't really know this. Well,
Oh,
and the
wow.
building existed longer as a residence and a nursery than it did as any of the other
Okay.
iterations.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
and so I was curious about that. And a lot of the ghosts that are reported are from like the clinic days and the
Hmm.
nursing home days. And I'm like, why don't we have a lot of ghosts from like from the nursery, the garden nursery
Yeah.
days? But I think they could be there. But now that people are coming forward, they're telling me their stories, and so the book may end up having a volume two, just with like the other angle of the history.
Yeah.
Um, it's a fascinating place. There's a lot of really good activity there. Um, the reason why I wrote the book, and I alluded to this earlier, was the story and the lore of the Trivet Clinic was starting to get skewed a bit by because the place got popular after the Tennessee Wraith Chasers went there and they did an
Oh,
event
okay.
there.
All right.
So it started to become more popular and people started to make more content with it. Um, and it was interesting because the owners give a history tour whenever there's a new visitor there. They give a history tour, and it's accurate. It's supported with newspapers, historical documentation. Um,
Yeah.
but somehow the stories are still getting skewed, and I'm like, okay, how is it becoming like more dramatic, like Dr. Trivet was a back alley abortion doctor? And I'm like, no, he wasn't.
Right.
No, he wasn't. Like, give me a source that supports that, please.
Right.
So I really wanted to, Jen. Gosh. Um, yeah, so I was starting to see YouTube content of like demons at the Trivet Clinic and all these really horrific stories about the place that aren't true. And so I wanted to write the book to level set the location.
Hmm.
Um and I actually have some ideas for the owners too to maybe help with that, like maybe do like displays, like what they do with
Yeah.
museums, like displays of the
Right.
area of the different areas. Because it's breaking my heart that that's happening. Because I also
Right.
believe, like kind of like what you, um, D, is, your thoughts manifest. Like you
Yeah.
can manifest your intentions and thoughts, and if people are going in there thinking that there's demons at the clinic, or that Dr. Trivett was this evil baby killing doctor, like
Mhm.
that's going to manifest somehow, and I
Yeah.
don't know how I feel about that.
Right.
So, and I'm glad I wrote the book now, because there was a group doing a tour at the Trivett Clinic, ironically on the same day as I did a book signing there, who just kind of created their own stories with the Trivett Clinic and saying, "Oh yeah, we have the historical information." And I'm like, "Where? Please, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but the
Right.
book, if you open the book, you will see newspaper articles, you will see everything
Yeah.
that supports all of my research. If I miss something, I would love to see your sources." And of course,
Mhm.
they never have sources. They're
Right.
like, "Well, you can just
Right.
find it yourself." I'm like, why would we do that? Like, I've
Right.
shared with you all my sources,
And
and you
and
don't.
you've already found it, so why
And
not just give it to me, right?
yeah,
Right.
just give it to me. And if I have to like post a retraction or update the book, then I would be happy to. Like, don't you
Mhm.
want the true story to be out too? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Right.
So so ironically, a lot of people from that tour bought the book, and I'm like, ooh, they're gonna see a completely different story in my book. But that's the
Yeah.
reason why I did it, because yeah, people are kind of taking, because the Trivia Clinic is relatively unknown still. I mean, it's gotten more
Right.
popular in the last couple years, but it's almost like people see it as a clean slate to kind of make up stuff. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
unfortunately, that
Right.
is a thing in this
Yeah.
field, especially with the more popular locations. And even on the location's website, if they have certain history, still do some history research and
Right.
see if it's correct. Because I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a popular historical location, um, and
I do,
I've seen
Jen. I do.
opposite. Oh, Jen, thanks. Yeah. I literally keep 19th century screenshots on my phone. Like, like if someone says something, I'm like, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" Because I
Right.
remember seeing this in a letter that was written in 1823, and yeah, no, that's not correct.
Yeah.
Because I'm a
That's
nerd. I'm
awesome.
a nerd
I love
like
it.
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so to me, I think the real stories are more interesting than what's fabricated
Mhm.
anyway.
Oh yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
like the whole story of the Trivia Clinic is just, it's fascinating. And it's like, we don't need to make up demons. I mean, the guy who bought the clinic after Dr. Trivette died, he opened a detox clinic on the main floor and a supper club in the
Right.
basement, and
Right.
literally like ushering up his customers so that they can become patients, and
Right.
looking
Yeah.
for the next get rich quick scheme. And he was
Yeah.
trafficking booze like
Yeah.
under
Nailed it.
onto the
Yeah.
nurses' quarters. Like, come on, like
That's funny.
this is fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my big reason for writing the book. And plus, share my investigations. So the book is broken up into three parts. There's my investigations, there's also the historical research, photos, and all that stuff. And then
Yeah.
I also interviewed about a dozen investigators who had been there as well to get their experiences. I actually interviewed more like 20, but about a dozen made it into the book. Um,
Oh, cool.
so I included investigators who had been there since day one. I included
Yeah.
investigators who had just started investigating the clinic, and the paranormal community in oh, bye Jen.
Bye, Jen.
The paranormal community, like sometimes we're very siloed and we don't really talk to each other about experiences. So when I was kind of taking my notes, I started to notice like, oh, that's interesting. We all had the similar experiences in this room, and
Mhm.
okay, only men had a certain experience in this room. So I started to
Hmm.
notice some patterns in there, or things that were consistent with my own,
Yeah.
or even unique experiences that I'm like, oh, I never had that happen to me, but I'll put it in the book.
Right.
Um, so yeah, so I feel like the book has it's got a good perspective on the history and the experiences that people have had. And like I said, I'll probably end up writing a volume 2 to focus more on like the nursery years, the
Oh, cool.
guarded nursery
Right.
years.
Right.
Since people are coming forward to me saying, "Hey, my dad worked at the nursery in the
Yeah.
70s, and he always got really spooked out in the surgery room." And I'm like, "Oh,
Oh,
tell me
wow.
more,"
Yeah.
because I don't have a lot of those stories at all. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool when that happens, when you get to talk to people from the past of the building, you know.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. There was a couple of women that I had talked to. One of the more prominent spirits on the second floor is an old crotchety man named Philip.
Nice.
Very dry humor. Um, like I remember one time we were doing an Estes method in his room, and immediately whoever was under said the name Philip, and I was like, "Oh, Philip, how are you?" Dead.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, thanks, Philip. So that's just kind of how Philip is. But I actually ended up talking to two women who worked at they're old, who worked at the clinic when it was a nursing home, and Philip was their patient. And
Oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh, stop it.
and so I was talking to them. I said, "Can you tell me about Philip's personality?" Well, he had a
Wow.
very dry sense of humor and very
Oh my
down to earth. And I'm
god.
like,
That's
okay, so
awesome.
so his personality is still very much the same in death,
Yeah.
and um, yeah, it was just very interesting. And like, he didn't like you to sit in a chair in a certain area of the
Yeah.
room. And whenever I sit in that spot, like something happens, and it's like you need to get your ass up. And I'm like, okay, I'll get up, Philip. Sorry.
Right.
Right.
So
That's
That's
so
yeah,
funny.
cool.
yeah, it's
I
neat.
mean,
That's
but
great.
then like I love hearing stories. Like I was honestly very happy to hear about Philip, but then I'm like, why is he still there? What is he doing there? Why doesn't he go somewhere else?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So the clinic, the spirits that haunt the clinic, they all kind of have their own pods, like family units.
Yeah.
They're not all related to each other. Just they just like gravitated to each other. So Philip is part of like the second floor unit, the second floor pod, as I say. That's connected with another man named David, who is also kind of grumpy and crotchety. But he softened a bit after. So somebody dropped off this haunted wardrobe at the Trivet Clinic, and it came with a little girl named Emily. Um, and after Emily started kind of showing herself around the clinic, David softened up. So I don't know if David and Emily have like a father-daughter dynamic, and Philip
Yeah.
is like the weird uncle type of thing. But they all kind of have their own little pods. And in the basement, same thing. There's a couple of kids in the basement. Majesty, that's how you know you're in the South. Majesty and
Uh,
Jimmy. But there's also like two nurses that haunt the basement as well as Dr. Trivet. But Dr. Trivet only pops up when people come in with like a really impressive equipment setup.
Nice.
Like literally we've like caught pictures and videos of a figure that matches his description standing over the equipment, like, and hearing things on Phasmovox and EVP, like, tell me more about this. What's
Oh
the
my
stick figure
gosh,
do?
how cool.
Like, he's so fascinated by the equipment, and he's
Yeah.
like, so why does that light up? Like, we've picked that up. Like, why
Oh
does
my
that light
gosh,
up?
that is so funny.
So he's just very like, what is this? Tell me
Yeah.
more. So that's like another pod as well. And then there's like a little pod outside, and there's a pod on the main floor. And so I don't know if maybe like they all find comfort in each other.
Yeah.
yeah.
Or I've also had this theory that maybe Philip is more of a trickster type of spirit, and he's just wearing a lot of different hats and playing all these different roles. I mean, you
Yeah.
know,
Oh,
it's like
interesting.
puts on a blonde wig, goes into the basement. I'm Majesty. Then
Yeah.
goes to the second floor, like, I'm David. I'm grumpy.
Yeah.
I've also
I mean,
wondered that as well.
honestly, we have no idea.
We have no idea how this all works, but
Wonder
yeah.
if they
So I
have
think
Pod Wars.
I know, right? Like, I think they may have like this weird relationship with each other. Not weird, but
Let's see if.
like it's almost like a found family, I think. That's at least my theory. Because I've asked Philip, like, hey, why are you here? But I get the sense, and a couple of mediums told me this too, that this was like the only place where Philip really felt like he was home. Not to
Okay,
get
and
Oh, okay.
that's
emotional.
fair. That's
Um,
fair.
Yeah.
so that's why he hangs around, and I guess even though he may not show it, he does like talking to all the different people.
Yeah.
It's like he's got that hard exterior that he's acting like. He reminds me of like Mr. Wilson from Dennis the Menace
Yeah.
sometimes, where he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to talk to anybody," and blah blah blah. No, wait, come back.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But I
Right.
mean, I guess if you're gonna stay,
Yeah, like
ask your question.
yeah, exactly. Like you're like, I don't want you to stay, but if you have to,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So
that's good because I do wonder, especially with places that have like more of a traumatic past, like
mhm,
why would you want to stay there or are they stuck there? And the
right.
thought of like, I have a big heart, okay? I can't the thought of somebody being stuck reliving trauma every day for
Mhm.
eternity is like,
Right.
it's too much for me.
I struggle with that too with places like Gettysburg. And it's one of my favorite places, but I also get a little concerned of like, am I perpetuating um this idea of not exploitation. I don't know what the word
Right.
is, but
No, I
it's
get what
like
you're
Yeah.
saying.
so many people
Mhm.
died in Gettysburg, and
Right.
Right.
And we're visiting it.
we're visiting it, like,
Yeah.
and we're I mean, the whole town is a tourist attraction,
Yeah. And
and
we're wearing
Yeah.
t-shirts with it.
we're
And,
wearing t-shirts with ghosts and like Gettysburg
you're
ghosts,
right.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
these were real people with families, and
Mhm.
Right.
half of the people in the Confederacy didn't want to be there, and they're almost like,
Right.
Right.
well, and it's one of those things where it's like a whole tourist attraction. So I kind of struggle a little bit with that sometimes.
Yeah.
I love going up there.
Makes
I love the
sense.
historical preservation they've done up there. But yeah, sometimes I feel a little icky when I go to these
Right.
places where I'm like,
Right.
Right.
am I part of the problem? Like,
Yeah.
I like the idea of meeting new people, but I've also have run into spirits in Gettysburg who were they were traumatized, like
Yeah.
still reliving that. And I'm just like, man, I hope that doesn't happen to me where I'm like
I
Right.
reliving that fear all the time.
I
Yeah.
hope that it's residual.
Mhm.
Like I hope
Same.
that it's, because they say when something
Yeah.
traumatic happens, every day we're putting our energy out into the world and putting stains on everything. But when something super traumatic happens, it's like so much stronger that it could,
Mhm.
just that energy staining those
Right.
battlefields could be enough to make it look like there's still people there. And that's
Oh
kind of
yeah.
what my heart hopes for, is that
Mhm.
that's what it is. And really, like, those people's actual spirit is with their families or in their houses or whatever.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's just residual stuff that's left.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, at least what I've heard with the spirit of Jenny Wade, it's more like she's become like the social ghost of the town, like she's the popular girl of the
Yeah.
town. Um, and as well as her fiance and their friend Wesley Culp. Like they were all best friends. The Civil War kind of tore them all apart. Wesley was working in Virginia at the time when the Civil War broke out, so he ended up fighting for the Confederacy. He
Oh
ended up
wow.
on the Confederate side during the Battle of Gettysburg, and he died not too far from his family's property area, which is now known as Culp's Hill. He didn't die at Culp's Hill. That's a rumor. That's debunked. He wasn't too far though. So the
Yeah.
rumor wasn't like super far fetched, but apparently they so Wesley Culp died like the day before Jenny died. I think I have that timeline right. I may have it wrong though. And then her fiance Jack Skelly had been injured in battle, and he succumbed to his injuries like a couple weeks later. And he had given Jack Skelly a letter to give to Jenny while he was in Gettysburg, but Jack never. I think he did die before Jenny because he never delivered that letter.
Wow.
So
Oh
it's just
wow.
kind of weird how like these three best friends
Yeah.
like within weeks die like two of them
Yeah.
died within a day of each other, but
Yeah.
within weeks like they were all torn apart and
Right.
but apparently they all found each other in Gettysburg, and
Right.
they all hang out. Like people have reported seeing a trio with two men and a woman hanging out like hanging out in Gettysburg, and I'm like, I really hope that's the case, that
Right.
they're just
Yeah.
hanging
Right.
out and
But,
doing their thing, and you
but I
know
mean, it's possible too that their spirits are still seen on the battlefield or in the hospital, you know,
Right.
um, but maybe that's not actually where they're at.
yeah.
So that's the
Yeah.
justification that my brain has. Like, it's okay because it's probably not them. Like, they're probably chilling with their best friends back at the
Yeah.
house, but
Right.
we're still going to see that because it was a traumatic event that,
Yeah.
put so much energy out there.
I'm inclined to believe in the fragmented soul theory. I think
Mhm.
I know it's like indigenous, but also an Asian belief where when we go through trauma, like parts of our soul break off,
Mhm.
type of thing. So I
Mhm.
mean, we could be getting a conscious Jenny Wade in Gettysburg, but she could also be hanging out with her family, in Maine. It's one of those
Yeah.
Yeah.
things where, and also inclines me to more believe into like the whole past life theory where
Mhm.
because I have a friend who has a very strong case of a past life during the Civil War days, but that spirit of her past life is still seen. And I'm like, well, you're here.
Right.
Why do people see your
Yeah.
past life? And the whole fragmented soul theory may provide an explanation for that, but
I'm gonna have
it's
to look into that more because I'm not versed on that.
oh yeah, definitely look it up. It's fast. It's really
Okay.
fascinating. It's a rabbit hole
Yeah.
though. Like,
That's
just
okay.
be
I like
prepared.
that.
Have
Yeah.
some cocoa, coffee, and some snacks, and it's a rabbit hole.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, and maybe so like if you have a part that comes off, does that mean that that goes away? Like if you do have trauma, does that mean that your original soul is free of that trauma then?
I don't. For me, at least, I don't think so. Um,
Okay.
and actually, with the whole topic that got me diving into the fragmented soul theory was the person who's currently living in my childhood home hears my voice.
Oh, nice.
Could be
Oh wow.
residual. Could be a residual
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. So he found me because for some reason, anytime my childhood home goes up for sale, I get the calls, even though I never owned it. My mom did.
Yeah.
Um, and this guy just happened to find me, but he emailed me. Alex MATSUO is more of like a pen name, a show name. It's still my name, but my full legal name is a lot longer. And Alex is my middle name. So he
Oh,
found
okay.
referring to me as my first name, and he was like, "Hey, I understand you used to live at this address in San Diego. I have a weird question for you. Please don't think I'm crazy, but is your house haunted?" And I emailed back. I'm like, no, not crazy at all. Tell me more. I'm
Nice.
interested. And he said, well, there was a couple things happening. And I said, hey, let's hop on a Zoom call because, that way you can talk through it and not have to type it. And
Right.
as soon
Right.
as like my face popped up and he heard my voice, he said, oh my God, it's you. And I'm like, what? He's like, your voice is what I'm hearing in the house. And I'm like, oh, huh.
Yeah. I'm alive, right? Like
I'm alive and that's
yeah.
weird. And so that's where I asked him, I said, okay, when you hear my voice, what exactly am I saying? And he's like, well, I'm hearing you say like what? And okay. I'm like, okay, so I'm talking to my mom and my grandma, and I'm
Right.
younger because anytime they would call me,
Yeah.
I go, what? Because I was a sassy kid.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Right.
yes, ma'am. It was what? So I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I think so I explained residual hauntings to him, and he was like, "Oh, you know a lot about this stuff." And I'm like, "Actually, um,
Wonder who
actually,
wrote a book.
I said, I'm like, I think this may be more residual. I don't think it's anything conscious, or I think you're okay." But the weird thing is with that house, though, since my mom lost it to foreclosure, unfortunately, it's been put back on the market several times over the years, and my family lived there from the 80s until 2013. So
Wow.
Yeah.
the fact that that house has now gone through like 3 or 4 owners since, it's like something's going on there. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe my mom's haunting it. I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah. I mean, if you live there for so long, it's obviously a place she
Right.
felt like home.
Yeah. Well, she always said, "This is my home. This is my house." And I'm like,
Yep.
"Yeah." So it is. It's our
So
house.
Yeah.
she's taken it back 3 or 4 times now and kicked those people out.
It's so funny. People have said like, "Oh, the house is calling you back," or "The house wants you to buy it back." And I'm like, "If it gives me $2 million, I will buy the house back."
Right?
Yeah. No shit. Right.
Like,
Like,
does the house know the housing market? Like, no.
right, especially when my grandparents bought it. They bought that house for 100 grand in 1981, which is still very expensive back then. Um,
Yeah.
Pretty expensive, not very expensive, but
Yeah.
it wasn't like 50 grand.
Yeah.
But it's because it sits on the top of a hill, looking over like the beaches and the bay and San
Nice.
Diego. It's a beautiful place for a house. But yeah, now it's worth about $2 million,
Yeah.
and it's like
You know,
if the house wants to give me $2 million, I will be glad to buy it back.
Right.
if you buy a lottery ticket and win exactly $2
Yeah.
million, like you know you have to buy that house, right?
I know if it's
Right.
exactly two, I'm
Yeah.
like, well, okay. Guess this is
That's
happening.
settled. Yeah.
Yeah,
Why is
so
my dog
funny.
barking?
I don't
Oh
know. He was
man.
just staring intently at your display behind you.
What?
Uh-oh.
He was standing there. I thought he was going to grab something off the shelf or something. Something had his intention.
Nice.
Stop barking at ghosts.
Oh,
That is so funny.
Poopy.
He's a
Big
master,
boy.
but he's a
Goodness.
big baby. He's
Aw.
yeah, but he does do that weird thing, you know, where they look down the hallway and just start growling or
It's
barking.
always fun when
Or,
they do
Yeah.
that. And it's like, what are you looking
yeah,
at?
right,
Don't stop.
right. The
My
worst was
cats do that.
my old dog.
Yeah.
My middle son was like 2, and I was home alone. My husband was at the cabin, and my dog started barking, and then like 2 seconds later, my son's like, "Hi." I'm like, "No, we're leaving." Who are you
Nice.
both seeing? Nope.
Nice.
I do have spirits in my house, but I refuse to talk to them. Like I refuse to do any like phasma box, like any of that stuff, because I don't want them
Yeah.
to know that they can talk to me because I'm a scaredy cat. Okay. I
See, I
like
would
to
totally talk to them, but I'm not allowed to do any of that in my house.
no.
See, I talk to my ghosts all the time. I'm like, hey, you want to chat?
No, I can't do it. So my kids have all seen a man in my house and they've all seen a little girl in my house. Okay. So I actually won a Phasma box and I was so excited and it got shipped to my house. And as soon as I turned it on, there was a man's voice that said, "She can hear us now." And then the little girl goes, "She's so nice." And I was like, "Yep, it works. Turn it off." Can't do it.
That's amazing, though. Like,
I mean, it was
Oh,
good
that's so funny.
validation, but I was
Yeah,
done.
right.
nice.
I like to go places to do investigations. I don't want to have to do that at home. I know there's things
Yeah,
here and we
true.
just kind of coexist, but
hmm
Right.
we don't need to chat.
Yeah, I hear you. That's
Yeah.
nice.
Hey, we'll see you
Although,
tomorrow, Holly. Or not tomorrow, Saturday. We'll see you Saturday.
oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
I know, right? All right.
I got my car packed already
We're still
because
interviewing Alex. Calm down.
sorry.
I think we got a couple minutes left, 10-ish minutes. Yeah, we can start thinking about tomorrow.
Right. No, Holly, you cannot. Every once in a
Yeah,
while,
it's
Shelly,
a
when
no
she
ghost
comes
zone.
over, Shelly comes over for a party and she'll be drinking and then she'll just be sitting on my couch. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Talking to that guy." I'm like, "Don't talk to that guy."
Maybe
Nice.
that's all he needs and he'll leave. Just talk to him for a bit.
Eh,
See what he needs. You're like, no, he's good.
I
He's good
do
where he is.
like if something happens, like a weird noise happens in my house or something moves or whatever. I'm like, "Listen, if you can move my stuff, you can move the dishwash, like the dish soap
Right.
and sponge. Like do things like that. The
Make
vacuum
them earn that
plugged in.
rent.
Exactly. Like you could vacuum.
Yeah. Wow.
So Heisenberg's not here, so I will ask you.
There you go.
I know you talked about a lot of the events that you have coming up,
Mhm.
but we want to make sure that you have time to. Oh, look, Eddie's asking if you're going to be at the Ohio State Reformatory.
I will not, unfortunately. That was one I wanted to attend, but yeah, maybe next year. Maybe next
Yeah,
year.
it's a good one. So, what else do you have to plug? What do you got going on? Where can people find you?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so you can find me at the spooky stuff on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. It's Alex MATSUO. Besides all the cons I got going on, I'm working on a book right now,
Awesome.
hoping to release before Troy Taylor's Haunted America, but I'm also trying to be gentle on myself and give myself permission to have it out by Halloween. But it's a book about the founding mothers of the paranormal. So the women who played instrumental
Awesome.
roles in developing the field as we know it today.
Awesome.
Dating all the way back
Well
to the
needed.
1800s. Yeah, it's one of those things. Allison Jornlin has done incredible work in,
Uh-huh.
spotlighting a lot of these women. But I noticed like all the information is still very spread out. So I basically wrote the book as like a one stop place.
Yeah.
And the reason why I keep putting off the release was I started off with 10 women for this book. I am now at 25
Nice.
because
Oh
I
wow,
keep
that's awesome.
finding more. I keep finding more. And I'm like, I got to put a cap on this and be like, hey, volume 2, there could be 2 volumes.
Right.
And plus a lot of the bios, the biographies, like Catherine Crowe, her chapter's like 3,000 words. But then I have another one like Ada Goodrich Freer, who her chapter's maybe 800 words. So the
Oh
bios and the
wow.
stories of these women are not consistently like the same length.
Yeah.
So, and of course, I'm going to have Rosemary Ellen Guiley, Linda
Right.
Godfrey, Lorraine Warren. I mean, I have to put her in I
Right.
have to put her in the
Oh
book.
yeah.
They're going to be in there as well. But yeah, I'm at 25 now, and the parapsychology field really was what ended up exposing a lot more women, because I'd find one woman, I would read her research in her journals, and I look at the co-authors, I'm like, that's a female's name.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Google
Yeah.
that. Oh, holy cow, this person introduced Karelian photography from Russia into the US. Okay, well, I got to include her.
Right.
That one, her name is Thelma Moss. She was a Broadway actress before she went into parapsychology, and she
Oh
ran
wow.
UCLA's parapsychology department.
Nice.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and she was a co-founder of the Actors Studio. It's like,
Nice.
Oh
I'm like,
wow.
huh?
Yeah.
I'm like, what? You
Right.
you were on Broadway, you started the Actors Studio, and then you did this pivot, and then
Yeah.
now you made some of the most impactful contributions to the field of parapsychology and the paranormal. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
So
what that's what I love about
Right.
the paranormal field, though.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you could have a team, and there could be like a doctor, a real
Hmm.
estate agent.
Mhm.
Like
Right.
there's just all these different people come together because there's not one sort of person that likes it.
Yep, exactly. So it's been really cool. But yeah, so right now I'm at 25
That's
women,
funny.
plus a few honorable mentions like from Victorian newspapers. It was like Mr. Bob Simpson or Mrs. Bob Simpson reported seeing an apparition in her doorway. And I'm like, yeah, put her in. I'll just put her in as like, this was an interesting little article I found, from
Right.
the London Times in 1823. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so it's turned into a bigger beast than I expected. And plus, writing a research based book that requires footnotes and citations is intense. It's like being
Yeah.
back in college. I'm like, I gotta cite my sources, and this is becoming huge. Like, it's become a lot of work. So I'm hoping at the very latest it should be out by Halloween.
Nice.
If I get a burst of energy and a creative streak, maybe June. So we'll see what happens. Unless I find like 10 more women, um,
Oh
then
no.
I have to put a cap though. And if someone's like, "Why didn't you include such and such?" Oh, they're going to be a volume 2.
Right.
Yeah,
There you go. Yeah.
there'll be a volume 2.
Can we just talk about how all of my lights on my thing turned off one at
I
a
saw
time?
that.
It's
You're
fine. It's
talking
fine.
about
It's
your
fine.
you're talking about your resident
Right.
ghosts, and they're like, "Oh, hey."
Oh, you're gonna ignore me? Watch this.
Oh, there goes.
There we go.
Another one just went off. Holy
I
shit.
know.
Whoa.
I'm trying to listen to Alex talk, and I'm just like
And you're
noticing
freaking
it
out.
on my screen that
That's awesome.
it's fine.
Like, ignore us, will you?
That's the most paranormal activity I've seen in the last few investigations. That's not even an investigation. It's awesome.
That's
Oh
amazing.
gosh.
So
That's so
funny.
cool.
Okay.
Hi, spirits in
Right?
Denise's house.
Yeah.
Hi. Hello.
Good
Turn the lights
time.
back. Turn the lights back on, maybe.
Your dog
No,
was
see,
seeing
that's one of
something.
those things that I would ask for, and then I'd be like, "Why did I do that?
All
I
right.
don't want the lights to come on."
Wow.
Nice.
He's like,
Oh
that's
gosh.
epic.
It is live.
So, how could people find your schedule?
I'm gonna update my schedule on my website, but you can find the preliminary one at alexmatsuo.com.
Okay.
Oh, I forgot. I also have Mass Paracon and Sleepy Hollow Paracon, and There Is Hope
What have I
Paracon, and
done?
yeah, my September. I'm trying to figure this out. Maybe somebody like you guys or someone watching can give me some ideas, because I ended up committing to a con every weekend in September that's in New England.
Oh
Like,
wow.
how did I do
Wow.
that? I live in Virginia, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Drive every weekend? Or
Right.
Right.
maybe I need to find somebody that lives up there and be like, hey, can I crash on your couch for a month?
Yeah.
Right.
Or rent a
Yeah.
guest room for a month? Because Airbnb is going to be really expensive.
Right.
Especially that area. Definitely.
Yeah. So I'm in September too. Like in
Right.
September, that's like
Yeah.
Yeah.
peak fall there.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, what did I do? and plus, do I'm like, do I want to be away from my husband and my cats for a month too? So
Right.
Right.
maybe I'll be using all my Delta Flyer miles in September. I have them
Right.
all banked up for work. I was going to go to Japan, but maybe I'll
Yeah.
use it to
Yeah.
fly back and forth.
Apparently you're going to New England 4 times in September.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh. Why did I
That's
do that
cool.
to myself? But it's all good.
Well,
I'm
that's good.
excited. I wanted more Paracons and I got it, so
Yeah,
I
There
can't
you go.
complain. It's a good
Yeah.
problem
exactly.
to have.
Yeah.
Right. They're a
I love the
blast. I mean,
Paracons. They're
yeah.
fun. But it
Yeah.
I
sounds like
find it
you're doing
more. Go ahead.
it sounds like you're doing a lot of you're not just doing Paracons.
Right. Well, I
Yeah.
started out doing like the sci-fi geek cons, like the Comic-Con type of places because usually I'm the only paranormal investigator. So,
Right.
or if there may be one or two others, but it was great exposure to like introduce people to the paranormal and it's a lot of people who watch the TV shows. I'll just be honest.
Yeah.
Right.
So like the panels I would always give, it's like paranormal investigating on TV versus real life, or the
That's a good
parallels
one.
between Ghostbusters and real
Yeah.
life investigating. So it's like those are usually the panels I give. Um, but yeah, the Paracons are a completely different story, and I feel like I can talk shop more at the Paracons
Oh
too.
yeah,
Like
for sure.
when I was at Hanover Tavern Paracon, one of the panel discussions was, what do you think about the 37th parallel? And I'm like, oh, oh, I could actually talk and go down the rabbit hole and not look at a sea of
Right.
lost faces of like, what
Right.
was she talking about? I just watched Ghost Adventures.
Right.
Let me write that
So,
down. 37th parallel? Was that?
yeah, the 37th parallel. It's almost like a Bermuda Triangle type of thing.
Oh, okay.
Well, with
Gotcha.
latitude and longitude, I think it's the
Yeah.
37th latitude. Um, of course, anytime I have to talk about it publicly, I flub it up. But yeah, look up the 37th parallel. But it was just really cool to have that and to be able to talk shop and dive a bit deeper. Um, I may end up having to pull back on those cons though, since my priority is like the Paracons. Because I'll be
Right.
honest, my books sell better at the Paracons
Right.
too.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, for
at
sure.
at the sci-fi geeky Comic-Con type of things, the only book that really sells well is The Brave Mortal's Guide to Ghost Hunting because people aren't ghost hunters, and if they're interested
Right.
they'll be like, oh, I want to check out that book, but
Yeah.
they're not interested in like the book about how to do residential cases
Right.
or personal stories. They're like, whatever. So I may end up pulling back on that next year. I do run the paranormal track for Con Carolinas, um, which I'm honored to do that. And usually they cover me a bit so that my expenses to
Yeah.
get down there aren't so vast.
Right.
Right.
So yeah, but definitely I think 2024 I'm going to pull back a little bit, at least on that, because the Paracons, that's the networking. That's where I get
Mhm.
to
Right.
meet everybody, and my
Right.
books sell better, my merch sells better because I make buttons, I make t-shirts, and
Yeah.
um, yeah. So yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and honestly, the Paracons are really like sometimes that's the only way I see a lot of my friends that I've met like through social
hmm
media and
Yeah.
have, it's the only time we see them
Yep.
because it's a reason to get together.
It
Because
is.
otherwise I'm not driving to Indiana or Maine or Illinois, I don't have that kind of money. But
Yeah,
yeah,
people have been asking me if I'm gonna go to the Michigan Paracon, and I'm like, I
yeah,
looked at flights for that.
Yeah.
Have fun.
yeah,
I
Yeah.
like maybe
yeah.
one day. But yeah, I saw somebody complaining on social media that there's too many Paracons now, and I'm like, no, there's not. Like, there's
Right.
not. We need
No,
more. Like, there's
Yeah.
no Paracon where I live.
right,
The closest one I think is Hanover Tavern Paracon, and that's an hour and a half away from me,
Right.
which
right,
is doable. But if I'm staying up all night for an investigation, I still have to get a hotel.
yeah.
So,
Right.
you know, um, and I'm
Yeah.
like, well, maybe I should start one. And then I see how much it costs, and I'm like, no,
Oh no, don't do it.
nope, you don't make money. You
No,
don't make your money
No.
back.
No.
It's a labor of love and with very little ROI.
Yeah,
right,
for sure.
So,
People definitely don't understand that part of it.
mm-mm.
But it's good. I mean, especially when you have like the ones that are, charity events or, to help a
right.
location or whatever. I'm all about that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, same. I'm really excited about There's Hope Paracon because I know that's for like suicide awareness, and
Mhm.
Yeah,
I deal with ideation often, so it's a topic near and dear to my heart. So I'm happy to do that one. Um, Hanover Tavern is a fundraiser for Hanover Tavern, and I'm like,
Right.
hey,
Right.
let's preserve the historical places. So a lot
There
of
you go.
these events are charity events benefiting others, and same with
Right.
Fleetwood Paracon. That one's a good one too. So yeah,
Yeah,
Cool.
I love it. I feel like any building that was in sepia tone pictures, we should be doing everything that we can to save it.
yeah,
Right.
agreed.
That's like
Um,
my standard.
yeah, since moving to the DC area, I've been exposed to a lot of like old as F buildings, like Gadsby's
Yeah.
Tavern. Like George Washington was having his balls there, and
Right.
Yeah.
the oldest house in DC,
Thanks,
the
Jenny.
old stone house, literally called the old stone house. I think it was built in 1725, and I'm like, holy crap. I studied abroad in England for a year, so I've seen a lot of really old stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
There was
Right.
there was a tower down the street from my dorm that was like over 1,000 years old, and
Oh my gosh.
Oh wow.
yeah, I was dealing with a couple of ghosts in my dorm too, and they were all dressed in like Tudor style,
Yeah.
clothing, and I was like, wow, this is different.
That's
Um,
cool.
I'm like, hey, um,
Yeah.
hey,
I would like to investigate abroad sometime because I think it's so funny because,
Yeah.
Americans are like, oh, this building was built in the 1800s. And like you go to other countries and they're like, okay, here's a castle from 400 BC.
Like screw that modern shit.
yep,
But we,
yep,
we're fascinated by something that was built in the 1800s.
Right.
yep. Yeah, I think my
Oh,
college was built
sorry.
in like the thousands.
That's
Gosh, I don't even
crazy.
know. I'll have to look it up. It's old. It's old. When was my college built? 1263.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
Oh, we lost her.
she left.
I don't think she did it on purpose.
She probably closed out of her Google search.
Probably.
There she
Oh,
is.
there she is. Oh, go ahead.
I don't
Stop it.
know. That was weird.
What the hell,
You gotta
Alex?
close out of your
I don't
Google
know.
search. Yeah.
Yeah, no, my
Screw
college
you
is
guys. I'm going home.
right. My college was built in 1263.
That's
So,
crazy.
which it was in Oxford, which Oxford is old as crap too.
Right.
Right.
Good times. That was weird. Yeah, it's like the tab just closed, and I was like, "What? That? I don't know why that closed." Connor, yeah, Alex, what the hell? Ah, I
No,
am in
Johnny, we're
Virginia.
yeah, and D and I are in Ohio.
I've been to Texas a few times.
Ohio.
Also means good morning in Japanese. Ohio. Ohio.
Does it?
Yep.
Oh, there you go. That right.
Yep. Ohio.
Right. All right. Well,
All right.
have kept you over now. I apologize. But
I
it was
mean,
a good
we've
time.
gone longer than the show. Even.
We had a
Yeah.
lot of good chats.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is an awesome chat. I loved it.
Yeah, it was
Lots
fun.
of fun.
I like when you could just
Oh,
get weird with people, you know?
right.
I don't want to talk about boring stuff. I like to talk about the weird stuff. Let's dive into some rabbit holes.
Yeah,
Yep.
Connor. Now we have a reason to meet up sometime, unless you just want to shut up and not talk to me.
I have family in Ohio. They're living in
Oh, awesome.
Lakewood. Lakewood,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
Lakewood.
Holy crap!
That's not far
Yeah,
from
that's
me.
no, that's like a half an hour, 45 minutes from where I live.
Oh, snap.
So I actually lived in Lakewood for a little bit, but it was too much city for me. I couldn't do it, so I had to move back to the country.
Nice.
Lakewood has Millionaire's Row, right? There's a
Oh yeah. Yep.
It's freaking gorgeous
Yep.
houses.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, Alex, it was so good to chat with you.
Yeah, thank
It was
you.
so much fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hopefully we'll see you
Good
at some
times.
of the million Paracons that you're doing this
Yeah.
year.
So
We'll
many.
stop by and say
We'll
hello.
have to do this again too. This
Yeah.
was fun.
Definitely, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's definitely we've been talking about it off and on all night and like all week and all month. There we go. We're gonna be there tomorrow or this weekend. Potographs Parafest 4. So excited out in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Helping all the puppies, helping the Humane Society. We're really looking forward to that. We'll be doing some live cut-ins, some live feeds, some interviews, and I guess now we're going to be emceeing the speakers. So that'll be fun.
We're
Never
gonna
done that
be
before. But yeah, it'll be a good time. And I'm looking forward to it. So, again, Alex, thank you so much for coming on. We love you, crypto heads. We'll spook you later. Have a good weekend.
And
And
don't be an asshole.
don't be an asshole. We love you guys. And thank you so much, Alex. You have a good weekend and good luck with everything.
Thanks, you too.
All right.